Good morning, everybody. A little bit of a different look for today's baseball slate because the main slate, it's actually an afternoon slate, but it starts at noon, a little afternoon Eastern time. So mix up for the shows today. Instead, we've got the Stokastic Deeper Dive show, then the MLB Live Before Lock. There's still going to be Live Before Lock tonight, but Deeper Dive, Live Before Lock, we're doing now. And we're sponsored by Prize Picks. Like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel as you come in. Adam, how are you liking getting up early on a Thursday to talk about some baseball?
I like it because it means that the slate starts early, and then, like I was saying to you before the show, kind of a day off. Like I don't have a baseball show tonight, so I'll be done work at noon. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, and not too much going on in baseball, at least for tonight. Like I said, there is the 3-game slate. We're going to have Live Before Lock for that, but for today, we have a 6-game slate on DraftKings. It is 7 games on FanDuel, and here's what's going to make the FanDuel slate much different looking than the DraftKings slate. The pitching on DK, it's kind of hard to parse some of it. On FanDuel, though, you've got Robbie Ray and Frankie Montas added to the mix. So pitching much stronger on FanDuel for the 7-game slate than it is on DraftKings for the 6-game slate. But we'll be breaking all that down game by game right now. And then, of course, after us, there's going to be the Live Before Lock. So stick around, watch this show, watch the one afterwards, get your fill of baseball information. Let's open up by talking about the Miami Marlins at home against the Colorado Rockies. And one thing that stands out right here is that Braxton Garrett, while his numbers for this year are not great, he's had some issues giving up runs. He doesn't strike out that many guys, 16.4% K rate. There is a very, very low implied team total for the Rockies, 3.7. This is tied for the lowest on the slate. The only one that's comparable is the Cincinnati Reds, who are going up against Clayton Kershaw. So just based on that information, do you have any interest in going to Braxton Garrett at a cheap price today? Because the pitching is not all that great, particularly on DK.
Yeah, I mean, I do just because, like you said, pitching sucks. The first thing last night I was posting my head-to-heads, and I was just trying to put in, like some semblance of a dummy lineup. I've decided I kind of enjoyed just like looking early and trying to hand build the, a cash lineup and see how close I end up getting. And I'm going through the pitching, and it's just like I have absolutely no idea what the chalk pitching is going to be on DraftKings because this all sucks. But Braxton Garrett at 5,400 in a good matchup against the Rockies in a good pitcher's park. You can do worse. I mean, pitching on this slate is bad. Only a 16.5% strikeout percentage this year. Certainly not going to be excited about that. But it is a good matchup, a good park, and a cheap price tag, which is kind of all you can ask for on the slate.
Yep, $5,400 on DraftKings. And I mean, we look at the other cheap pitchers we have to consider today. We've got Braxton Garrett, 5,400, Jason Alexander at 6,500. You talk about guys who don't strike people out. I mean, Jason Alexander brings it to a whole nother level with a sub 10% K rate. Then you got Devin Smeltzer, another really low strikeout guy. Zach Plesac, another guy who sucks with low strikeouts. So it's funny because as much as I kind of want to poo-poo on Braxton Garrett for not striking guys out, he has a higher strikeout rate than any of the other cheap options. And if you're looking for a cheap SP2, I kind of think he becomes the guy by default for me. Now, the one caveat to that is that we don't have ownership projections yet because it is so early in the morning. So I'll feel different about it if we find out that Braxton Garrett's going to be like 60 or 50% owned or something like that. But assuming that isn't the case, Garrett is my favorite source of salary savings, and I think he's going to be kind of hard to avoid.
Yeah, and the other thing with the pitching on this slate, it's not just that there's a lack of talent because there are some good arms, but the good arms are like all in relatively difficult matchups. You have Hunter Green against the Dodgers, you have Wood against Atlanta, you have Clayton Kershaw in an okay spot against Cincinnati, but probably somewhat limited pitch count wise. So the top end of pitching, there is talent there, but it's not the most appealing matchups. Because has Cal Wright facing the Giants as well.
And then talking about the Colorado Rockies on the other side of this game against Braxton Garrett. And, I very rarely like the Rockies on the road, and especially not with this major of a park downgrade going into Miami as compared to Coors Field. But this is an offense that's much better against left-handed pitching than it is against right-handed pitching. Is there an ownership number that Braxton Garrett could get up to that would make you want to stack the Rockies for hedge purposes?
Yeah. I mean, if he ends up being, 30-40%, that's going to be pretty appealing. But also, even if he's not that popular, it's still a good spot for some of these Rockies, specifically CJ Cron. Brendan Rodgers would look pretty good as well. But I really like CJ Cron individually as a one-off or part of a mini stack with, Rodgers and Grichuk or something like that.
Yep, I think that makes sense. And just based on the initial builds that I've done, just doing it based off what the projections are, which when there's no ownership, I can't account for ownership right now. I do get to a ton of Braxton Garrett on both DraftKings, even on FanDuel, where we have more pitchers to choose from. So this leads me to think Garrett is going to end up being really popular. Once again, $6,500 on FanDuel, 54 on DK when we get that ownership update. I'll give you guys an update on that kind of information. On the other side of the game, Kyle Freeland is going to be pitching for the Colorado Rockies. And Freeland's numbers are always a little bit inflated because he has to make half his starts at Coors Field. But he's been also a weird pitcher where some years he puts up really good numbers overall for the year, despite making starts at Coors Field. And then Kyle Freeland comes back the next year. It's like, oh, look, he sucks now. And he's kind of been all over the place. Although it's funny, his ERA is about the same this year as it was last year, but his expected ERA is about a run different. So we look at Kyle Freeland, big park upgrade for him, where it's a park downgrade for the offense. Is there any reason to get to Kyle Freeland in this spot against the Marlins?
Yeah, nice park upgrade for him, like you said. And even this year, I mean, ERA-wise, outside of Coors Field, he has still not been great. xFIP is still at 4.6, but his strikeout percentage goes from 12.3% in Coors Field to 19.7% on the road. His WOBA allowed so far, 372 in Coors Field, 291 outside of Coors Field. And normally I'm not going to talk that much about home road splits for most pitchers, but it makes a lot of sense when you're talking about somebody that pitches his home games in Coors Field. Freeland's not a horrible pitcher typically in terms of limiting power. He's never going to be a great strikeout guy, but on this particular slate at a $6,800 price tag, I'm certainly interested in Freeland.
And then we have the Miami Marlins going up against Freeland. And this has been a team that we've talked a lot about on shows, pretty much all of us, that the Marlins, they weren't expected to have a good offense this year, but they actually have had a pretty good one overall, though more so against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching. I'm kind of confused how the Marlins don't have a better record when you consider that their WRC plus is far greater than expected. Their pitching rotation seems stacked with all the talent they have at the top end. But that aside, do you see reason to get to the Marlins offense going up against Kyle Freeland? Generates a lot of ground balls, but once again, does give up some hard contact.
Their pitching rotation seems stacked as they throw out Braxton Garrett.
Yeah, well, I mean, beyond him.
I knew what you meant. I just kind of had to laugh that like who's pitching for them today. But yeah, it's a high upside offense. I mean, John Birdie leading off gives you stolen base upside. Granted, it is a difficult running matchup against Kyle Freeland, so that does hurt him a little bit. Jorge Soler, we know, has a lot of power. Garrett Cooper, Aguilar, Garcia, these guys all have some power. Not a good park, but overall a pretty cheap offense. Once you get past the top of the order with Birdie and Chisholm, Soler is at 4,100. He's the most expensive guy other than Birdie and Chisholm in this lineup. So certainly think there's upside for Miami here, even though the park's not great and there are probably other spots that you're going to like a little bit more. I still don't mind getting to these guys.
All right, so let's move on to the next game. And this is a good time to talk about this game because the lineup just came out for the Atlanta Braves, and it's not what we were expecting, to say the least, because, well, for starters, there's no Ronald Acuna in the lineup, but it's Dansby Swanson leading off, Darno batting second, then it's Ozuna third, Olsen, Contreras, Arcia, Gosselin, Heredia, and then Harris batting at the end of the lineup. This is a very watered down version of what we typically see from Atlanta, which, I mean, obviously strongly driven by there being no Acuna in the lineup. And then, of course, also just that Ozzy Albies is hurt right now. When you look at the bottom of this lineup, Arcia, Gosselin, Heredia, Harris, does this add any appeal to Alex Wood now?
Yeah, it does, because kind of like, I mean, we've touched on already, pitching's pretty questionable today, and most of the good pitchers are facing good offenses. It's still not a cakewalk lineup. I mean, Swansea, Darno, Ozuna, Olsen, Contreras, those guys are all problems, but you get past that and you get Arcia, Gosselin, Heredia, Michael Harris. Certainly sets up pretty nicely for Alex Wood, all things considered. He's relatively inexpensive at 9K, as in he's less expensive than the other top end pitchers on the slate. So I do think that's a nice bump for him, just that there is essentially not a major league bottom of the order here.
Yeah. And once again, something that we will see a lot when it comes to these watered down lineups, and because this Braves lineup is terrible relative to what we normally see from them. This is an early slate. Keep that in mind, where teams that played last night, they're more apt to give players a rest because, these guys just played a few hours ago. So this is oftentimes where we'll see teams resting. So as these lineups come out, it's going to change some of how we might look at some of the pitching options because, You said, what was it, 10 minutes ago? It's a potentially tough matchup for Alex Wood. Then we get this Braves lineup that comes out, and it's, well, not quite as difficult as we expected. So this has to be an upgrade for Alex Wood. I do think he certainly looks more favorable.
No
And
Adam
then,
Duvall in the lineup either is nice for Wood.
yeah, because Duvall hits left-handed pitching, has a little bit of power in his bat. And, the last few batters in the lineup now, you even get to a point where Alex Wood might be able to, kind of pitch around some of the batters in the middle of the order if he gets in trouble. And theoretically, what should be easier outs towards the bottom of the order. So
also no Austin Riley. Like, it's just kind of like noticing which bats are missing. Like Acuna, obviously the one that stands out, but yeah, I mean, this lineup is not good, and there's strikeouts too. Like going back to the start of last season, even though Swanson's a good hitter, 26% strikeout percentage for him. Ozuna's at 22.3%. Granted, this is overall, not against left-handed pitching. D'Arnaud's at 22%. Heredia's at 26%. Contreras is at 29%. Arcia's at 22%. There's strikeouts to be had here in addition to a weak bottom of the order.
Yeah, and the stuff that's going to change as we get more of these lineups to come out. But Alex Wood does look like a pretty favorable pitching option now. I know the Braves implied team total was 5.1. That's going to drop by the time that the odds update for this game, because this isn't just one player out for the Braves. It's multiple players. And it's also some of their best hitters against left-handed pitching, which also benefits Alex Wood. So considering what the lineup looks like, I like Alex Wood. I don't have very much interest in the Braves when this is what they're trotting out there.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, I think. Again, 1 through 5, you do still have solid hitters here. They're still upside. I think they still have an implied run total around 5. But normally, when the Braves are in a difficult matchup, I really like getting to them as long as they're low owned, just because there's so much power. Here, there is still power in the lineup, but it's certainly muted when you can't run out Acuna, Riley, Duvall, or Albies.
And then we'll talk about the other side of the game where Kyle Wright is going to be on the mound for the Braves against the Giants. Kyle Wright's been really good this year, and a guy who once upon a time was one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, and then just got off to a really slow start in his career. But now 26 years old, it appears he's figuring it out. 2.94 ERA, 3.2 expected ERA. For fantasy purposes, what we have to love is the 27.4% strikeout rate. It looks like this version of Kyle Wright is legit. He's here to stay. We're about halfway through the season, and he's been able to keep up these kind of numbers. I know the Giants present a fairly difficult matchup on paper. It's not a team that strikes out a whole bunch, but just considering some of the concerns I have with the high-end pitchers on the slate, Clayton Kershaw in particular, where I don't know how many pitches he's going to go, Kyle Wright's a pretty high priority for me. Is he for you?
Yeah, I still think he looks good here. I mean, the matchup with the Giants is sort of the negative point, but he has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate behind Hunter Green. He's got a 3.14 xFIP, which is really good. And San Francisco's lineup, not to the extent that Atlanta's is, but also watered down. You have Luis Gonzalez dealing with an injury. You have no Brandon Belt today. Chris Bryant's been out. So this is another lineup where, Yastrzemski, Flores, Ruff, Peterson, those guys are fine to good in the case of Yastrzemski and Peterson, but Thairo Estrada, Austin Slater, Kurt Casale, towards the bottom of the order, it's not the strongest version of the Giants lineup either.
Yeah, and then the other issue when it comes to the Giants in terms of stacking, beyond just the fact that Kyle Wright's been a really good pitcher this year, who I wouldn't like to stack against considering what his numbers are, the Giants pinch hit so frequently that let's say they get to Kyle Wright early and maybe the Braves bring in a left-handed reliever. You know what's happening? A bunch of players are coming out of the Giants lineup because that's typically what they do in these situations is pinch hit. So
I actually don't have that concern here because they are starting this weird right-handed lineup. Like Darren Ruff is starting, Wilmer Flores is starting, Estrada's starting. Like they're not gonna pinch hit for Thairo Estrada with Brandon Crawford because they bring in a lefty. Like maybe later in the game they just pinch it with Brandon Crawford or something. But like this lineup is so weird that I think it actually. I'm more confident in most of these guys staying in the lineup because they're starting guys against a right-handed pitcher that normally are the guys that start against lefties and then get pinch hit for.
Yeah, and I think that does make some sense. Like, why would Darren Ruff get pinch hit for when he's already starting? And I know the Giants are also dealing with a little bit of injuries right now. I would say the guy who's probably at the most pinch hit risk of players that matter, Jock Peterson, Yastrzemski. There's a chance that one of them could end up coming out when we get a left-handed pitcher in at some point later in the game. But even with that said, I don't know I'm going to like getting to them all that much just because I think Kyle Wright is good.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And also on the pinch hitting point, like they also don't have their pinch hitters on the bench. Like Austin Slater is starting. Darren Ruff is starting. So like these are the guys that maybe they would use to pinch hit if they bring in a lefty against Yastrzemski or Peterson, but like they're already in the game. So from that standpoint, I actually like the Giants here. The issue is what you said about Wright being a good pitcher. It's certainly difficult to prioritize much of anything against him.
Yeah. And to answer Nate Rojas's question in the chat, he wants to know, how is this the early slate? FanDuel has this as the main. It's because there's only, well, first, it's kind of both because it's clearly the early slate, but then it's also the main slate just because this is when most of the games are today. There's only 3 games tonight, and it's whatever. They can label it whatever the hell they want. They can just call it early, late, main. I don't know why they call things the main slate or the other slate. It doesn't really change the contest sizing. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, this is the main slate today because it's the most significant one. It's the biggest. It has the biggest prize pools. Any other takes from you on this Giants-Braves game?
Nope.
All right, so let's move on to the Dodgers and the Reds. And a couple of interesting pitchers to talk about in this spot. But I want to start by talking about Clayton Kershaw because when healthy, he's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball this year. And, you know, kind of what's always been the case with Clayton Kershaw over the last few years. Is he the no doubt best pitcher in baseball anymore? No, he's not that guy. There's been some decline now at age 34, but he's still pretty damn good. But we have pitch count concerns. He's coming off the injured list. The last 2 outings he had, he made 71 pitches and 81 pitches. It is a decent match for him against the Cincinnati Reds. I know it's a hitter-friendly ballpark, but still, the Reds don't have a great offense. It's Clayton Kershaw. But what kind of length can we expect out of him today?
I'm expecting around 90. I think that's reasonable. You know, you saw the 71 pitches his first start back, then you saw 81. I certainly don't expect them to just remove the leash and let Clayton Kershaw go crazy because obviously they're going to be cautious with him. He's got a pretty substantial injury history at this point in his career. But I also think that, you know, expecting him to throw another 10 pitches or so is very reasonable. And on this particular slate, I don't find the pitch count that concerning. Like when you think about the concerns for these top end pitchers, I am more concerned about the fact that Hunter Green is facing the Dodgers than I am about if Clayton Kershaw loses 5 to 10 pitches versus Hunter Green or Kyle Wright against the Giants. You know, so I think that all things considered, would I prefer Kershaw if I was confident he was going to throw 100 to 110 pitches? Of course. But even if, you know, I think he's going to get around 90-ish, that's still enough for me on this slate to really like him.
Yeah. And to your point also, I mean, it's not like 90 pitches is that much different from what we would typically get out of Kershaw anyway. It's not as if at this point in his career, he's regularly pitching games where he throws over 100 pitches. So 90 is fairly close to a full workload, assuming that's what it is. I would hope that we get some kind of definitive update in the next couple hours, but it's probably not coming if we're being realistic. So if we're just reading the tea leaves, 71 pitches, 81 pitches, right around 90 would be a logical jump. So
and that does make keep in mind too with pitch count, stuff like that. Once you get to the, you know, he's probably not throwing more than like 90-ish. Once you get past that, you know, 65, 70, you're typically just kind of talking more about the upper bounds of his range being affected. Like pitchers start to lose effectiveness the third time through the order. So once you get north of 90 pitches on average, you're kind of just, that's when you expect your pitcher to start getting in trouble and giving up hits and runs anyway. So it doesn't really kill the, you know, median output so much as it just like, obviously makes it so you're never getting a 9-inning, 15 strikeout game from Kershaw.
Yeah. And once again, we're comparing to the other pitchers on this slate, and there just aren't other guys to love at the high end. Like, for instance, on the other side of this game, well, at least not guys that are as good as Kershaw, but Kyle Wright's still a good option. But on the other side of this game, Hunter Green's really expensive. He is $9,600 over on DraftKings, which is typically more than we would see Hunter Green being priced. I'm actually pretty sure this is his most expensive price point of the season. He's $9,000 on FanDuel, but not only is he priced up this high, it's in a matchup against the Dodgers. So there's clear upside in Hunter Green because he has terrific strikeout stuff. He throws upwards of 102 miles per hour, 30.1% K rate. So we'll start by talking about Hunter Green individually as a pitcher. Assuming he's going to be low owned, is there enough upside for him to in him for you to want to play him in tournaments, or does the matchup scare you away?
Yeah, I mean, the matchup terrifies me, but if we're assuming that Green is relatively low owned because of the price tag, like, and I think that's a good assumption because he has the worst matchup of the group. He's only $600 less expensive than Kershaw, so I think people are going to prefer going to Kershaw. He's more expensive than Wood. He's $300 less than Wright, but Wright, you know, has a better matchup as well. So I think it's reasonable to think that Green is relatively low owned here compared to those other guys. He still has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate. Yes, the matchup's difficult, but you can't deny the ceiling that this guy offers. A 30.1% strikeout percentage. The issues are that he gives up too many home runs and walks too many guys and has an absolutely brutal matchup against the Dodgers. But just from an upside standpoint, I don't think you can really ignore how high Hunter Green's ceiling is.
And then talking about the offenses in this game, and I want to start by talking about the Dodgers just because we just touched on Hunter Green. And while Hunter Green has looked really impressive at times this year, he's also gotten blown up at times this year. It's the reason why, if you just look at his ERA and some of his underlying numbers, it doesn't match up with what you might see from the eye test with Hunter Green, because you could watch individual innings of Hunter Green pitch and be like, oh my God, this guy's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then you look at some of his numbers, like, well, he's a 5.26 ERA and a 5.3 FIP. So there's considerable upside, but there's also a downside, not just because of the matchup against the Dodgers, but because he's kind of erratic in general. The Dodgers have the highest implied team total of the entire slate. So how high of a priority are they going to be for you to stack against Hunter Green?
Yeah, I mean, this strikes me as a spot, again, we don't have ownership yet, but this strikes me as one of those spots that we talk about a lot where, because the Dodgers are facing one of the more talented pitchers on the slate in Green, and because Green's facing one of the more talented offenses in the Dodgers, it's likely that you just kind of see both sides projected to be a little bit underowned relative to their chances of success, because who in their right mind is going to willingly take hitters against Hunter Green when you can take hitters against Devin Smeltzer or Zach Plesac or Jason Alexander or any of these other garbage cans on the slate. But at the same time, the Dodgers are just one of the most talented offenses in the league, one of the most talented offenses playing today, and their lineup really isn't bad. Like, you compare it to what the Giants are running out or what the Braves are running out. You have Turner, you have Freeman, you have Smith, you have Muncy, no Mookie Betts. We know he's hurt, but it's certainly a pretty solid lineup for the Dodgers. So assuming that their ownership is muted a little bit because of the matchup, I will really like getting to them. Now, if you tell me the Dodgers are getting more ownership than teams facing Devin Smeltzer and Zach Plesac and all of these guys, then I'm going to feel a little bit differently. But assuming I'm getting some sort of an ownership discount here, I'm more than happy to go to this Dodgers team.
Here's where there's probably not going to be an ownership discount is over on FanDuel, just because the pricing is pretty odd on the Dodgers. So DraftKings, they're still pretty expensive. There's only 2 players on the Dodgers lineups on FanDuel that's priced over $3K. That's Freddie Freeman and Trey Turner. Other than that, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Chris Taylor, Justin Turner, Gavin Lux, Cody Bellinger, these guys are all priced well under $3K, so they're probably going to be massively popular on FanDuel. Once again, I'm just making an assumption. We don't have the ownership projections as of yet, so we'll see where that ends up shaking out. But the Dodgers are just really mispriced when it comes to FanDuel pricing. One other thing I want to ask you about the Dodgers in particularly, what the hell do you do with Max Muncy, who is really cheap on FanDuel, but he's really expensive on DK? He has a really good track record of being an elite hitter, but he has sucked this year. Would you have any concerns about playing him in the middle of the Dodgers lineup on DK, where he's $5,100 and he has like a 60 WRC plus this year or something like that?
Not really. His expected numbers are actually decent. 150 plate appearances against right-handed pitching this year, 343 expected WOBA, 226 expected ISO. His expected ISO is 100 points higher than his actual ISO. His expected WOBA is 50 points higher than his actual WOBA. He's striking out 23.3% of the time, which isn't some like egregious number or anything. 198 BABIP against right-handed pitching for him so far this year. So certainly not doing what you expect Max Muncy to do, but also I still think he's a good hitter, and I'm perfectly fine rostering him.
Yeah, Zips has him projected with a 132 WRC plus the rest of the season. Steamer has him at 126. I misquoted before. I said it was around 60, actually 82 WRC plus. So well below average, not quite as bad as I said it before, but that could also lower the ownership that we get on Max Muncy. Once again, just a guess. We don't have those ownership projections yet, but I don't think he's going to be massively popular, at least on DraftKings. As far as the Reds offense goes, any interest in stacking them against Clayton Kershaw?
Not particularly. I mean, I guess there's a point where Kershaw's ownership could get to, but, and it is a good park, but I think Kershaw's one of the best pitchers on the slate. There's a lot of teams that I actually want to get to offensively, and the Reds are not one of them.
All right, so let's move on to the next game. But first, do us a favor, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and shout out to Prize Picks, the sponsor of today's show. If you guys are signing up at Prize Picks for the first time, use the promo code AWESEMO. Still the old promo code AWESEMO. Those are going to be updated eventually, but at least as of now, a lot of the old promo codes still in existence. If you use that promo code AWESEMO, you get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. really good way to start building that bankroll over a Prize Picks. Also, if you are in a state where you would like to bet on sports, but it's not available, there's a good chance that Prize Picks is available to you and they have player props. So kind of like a good workaround to get some action on sports betting, even if it isn't available in your state. Let's move on to this next game now. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates at home against the Chicago Cubs. Adam, I don't know what you did with the Chicago Cubs last night, but I was underweight to the field on them, and it went poorly because they scored 1,000,000 runs. Diego Castillo pitched the ninth inning for the Pirates, which is never good when you are fading a chalky stack when the other team has a position player on the mound in the ninth inning. 14 runs scored by the Cubs last night. Today they're going up against Jose Quintana, who I think is headed for regression this year. I understand that his numbers don't look awful this season, but we have a pretty long history of Quintana no longer being all that great of a major league pitcher. So this year he does have a 3.66 ERA, but he has a 4.98 expected ERA. Last year he had a 6.43 ERA, a 5.02 expected ERA. What are you expecting from Quintana today, though?
I think he's kind of just a middle of the road guy. The matchup against the Cubs isn't bad, but there is certainly some power in this lineup as well. It looks like we're going to probably have ownership projections shortly. The actual projections just updated, so I assume we're getting those soon. So that'll help kind of shape my decision on Quintana, because he's one of these pitchers where I think that there are a lot of pitchers clearly worse than him on this slate. I think there's also a lot of pitchers that are clearly better. But depending on what the Cubs lineup looks like and what ownership on Quintana looks like, I could certainly see myself getting to him.
Yeah, let me see the run I did this morning. If I got too much of Quintana, if at all.
Like 20% strikeout percentage, 3.96 xFIP so far this year. He's certainly not a pitcher that on most slates I'm excited to get to, but on this one, that makes him better than a lot of guys.
Yeah, I got to him in only a couple of lineups when I did my initial build this morning. One thing that is a little bit of a holdup for me, just looking at some of Quintana's games, he's not pitched deep into games as of late. His last handful of starts, 5 1/3 innings, 5 innings, 3 1/3, 4 1/3, 3 innings, 3 2/3 innings. Is there anything we could read into that in terms of, are the Pirates just not letting him work deep into games to try to make him effective in a smaller sample size, or has it just been circumstantial that he hasn't gone as deep into games lately?
Probably a combination of both. I mean, last game, last two, he's still throwing 95 and 92 pitches. He was pitching poorly against Detroit, got pulled. 84 pitches against the Dodgers, 96 against the Padres. I think it's probably just more of he hasn't been particularly efficient.
Yeah, I think that would be one explanation. Either way, I think there's other guys I'm going to like more than Quintana. If he ends up in a couple lineups, cool. I'm not going out of my way to play him or avoid him, but I just don't think he's ultimately going to end up in a lot of my lineups. In terms of stacking against him, we don't have that ownership projection yet. I have a feeling, though, that the Cubs ownership is going to be inflated just based on what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. And to be clear, I don't think it's a bad spot for the Cubs. Kind of like I was saying with Quintana, the ownership on the Cubs is kind of going to really drive what I want to do, because Quintana this year has allowed a 247 expected ISO to righties. He's also only struck out 17.5% of righties compared to 32% of lefties. We don't have a Cubs lineup yet, but it's very likely to be extremely right-handed heavy. There may not be a single lefty in this lineup for the Cubs, so that sets up nicely for them. Chris Morel at 3,700 is going to look good. If Contreras is in the lineup, he's clearly a top catcher play. Wisdom's a top third base play. So this is a team where I do think it's a pretty good spot for them, but I also could just see the ownership being high, because that typically is going to be the case when you have a top option at multiple positions.
Yeah, and also when it comes to somebody like, also Contreras might have the day off because he's a catcher and this is the tail end of a back-to-back. Also, with the Cubs being really popular yesterday, everybody went off in the lineup but Wilson Contreras. So maybe that will sour people on him, because I know people were tuning me online. Hey, I stacked the Cubs with Wilson Contreras. So what's wrong with him? He just had a bad game. He had 5 at-bats. They didn't go his way. So that could be something that does lower his ownership a little bit if he ends up in there. I am really curious to see where this ownership ultimately does come out for the Cubs, especially considering how good they were at really, really high ownership yesterday. On the mound for them, Justin Steele, former adult actor. Is that true? I don't know. His name kind of sounds like it would be, though. His strikeout rate this year, 20.4%, middle of the road, 1.47 whip. I actually think he's a very similar pitcher to Jose Quintana. The numbers look fairly similar. Also, both left-hand pitchers with some strikeouts, but not all that much. What do you make of his matchup against the Pittsburgh Pirates?
I think the matchup is better. I mean, the Pirates offense isn't as good as the Cubs. And like you said, he is pretty similar to Quintana, 20.4% strikeout percentage, walks way too many guys at 11.2%, but a 4.01 xFIP. He's another one where I think he should be getting some ownership today just because of the lack of other pitching options. The Pirates aren't very good. So yeah, like I don't have any real confidence in Justin Steele, but he's just like an average pitcher against a below average offense, which on this slate is enough to make him interesting.
Yeah. And once again, if you're comparing him versus Quintana, I think him and Quintana are fairly similar pitchers, but I like the matchup a little bit better for Justin Steele against the Pirates. The Pirates offense, it should be better going forward with O'Neal Cruz in the mix. And I really do like O'Neal Cruz. I've been playing a bunch of him in DFS because of how cheap he's been. And once again, he's cheap again today. So it makes a lot of sense as a one-off. I do think the start to O'Neal Cruz's career has been a little bit overstated because he's a 37 WRC plus through 3 games. If you just looked at what everybody's saying about it online, you'd think that this guy is just off to the most ridiculous start to the season. While he's produced some individual highlights that have been really impressive, like that throw he made in the hole where it was 96 miles per hour to first base, the hardest throw that we've seen recorded by StatCast by a shortstop to first base this entire season. I don't think that all of a sudden O'Neal Cruz being in the mix means that the Pirates have some kind of great offense, but are you going to be looking to stack the Pirates today? And what do you like about O'Neal Cruz individually as a one-off option?
Not particularly interested in stacking the Pirates unless you're getting like crazy ownership on Justin Steele. Also for Cruz, not that it's the end all be all, but he's down to 7th in the order. It's a lefty-lefty matchup. Justin Steele has been lights out against lefties. Relatively limited sample going back to last year, but a 32.8% strikeout percentage, well below a 100 ISO allowed. So not really the spot where I think it sets up well for Cruz. If you want to make the case that he's still relatively inexpensive and has a ton of upside, then sure, that's always going to be the case. But whereas he's been a clear top play on every slate since he's come back to the majors, I don't think that's the case today.
Yeah, and if you didn't see, we just got an update to the top pitchers tool and the top stacks tool. So I'm going to go through that right now. And I think we could kind of circle back on some of the games we've already talked about now with some ownership updates and just some takeaways from this, what we see, what we like, what we don't like, and maybe what's different versus what we were expecting when it comes to ownership. So the 2 most popular pitchers on the slate are currently Clayton Kershaw and Kyle Wright. No real surprises there. I think that makes sense. We've got Clayton Kershaw projected for 37% ownership on DraftKings. Same goes for Kyle Wright. Over on FanDuel, the ownership does look much different, but that also makes sense because we have Frankie Montas and Robbie Ray on the FanDuel slate, not on the DK slate. So Clayton Kershaw and Kyle Wright, who are the chalk pitchers on DraftKings, are both about 10% owned on FanDuel, with Frankie Montas and Robbie Ray being the chalk at pitcher. As far as the cheaper pitching options go, you and I were talking about the merits of Braxton Garrett before. He's projected for 27% ownership on DK, so he's going to be the most popular SP2 option. But do you find the 27% ownership to be problematic at all?
For Garrett,
yeah,
not really, because it's pretty much in line with Steele and Quintana as well. I obviously Garrett is the cheapest of them. I doubt that you're going to need that savings in a lot of lineups, but I kind of thought that Garrett, Steele, Quintana should all be similar. I do think that even though I don't really like him all that much as a DFS pitcher, I will say that Freeland getting 50 to 60% of the ownership of these other guys makes him kind of interesting as a pivot.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Kyle Freeland, also, if you look at some of the data we have today, Braxton Garrett, 16.2% chance to be one of the top 2 pitcher on the slate. Kyle Freeland, 14.8%. So not that much that differentiates them. There is a little bit of a salary gap difference. Kyle Freeland being $1,400 more expensive, but I mean, he's still $6,800. That's a really cheap price point. So I could see that as a viable pivot. Something else that kind of stands out to me here, we were speculating on some of the Dodgers' potential ownership. They are the most popular team on the slate by far. Los Angeles Dodgers projected for 21% ownership over on DraftKings, whereas we have Hunter Green only projected for 8% ownership as a pitching option. Over on FanDuel, the Dodgers even more popular, which I was thinking could be the case just because they're so cheap on FanDuel. 26.5% projected ownership for the Dodgers as a stack over on FanDuel. Considering how popular the Dodgers are now expected to be, does this make you like Hunter Green anymore?
Yeah, it makes me like Hunter Green a little bit more, and it also kind of makes me. So I was kind of just looking forward to getting the Dodgers at what I thought was going to be relatively low DraftKings ownership, but at the same time, now I get to take hitters against Jason Alexander and Zach Plesac and Devin Smeltzer instead of Hunter Green. So not really upset about that.
Yeah, Hunter Green is of pitchers that actually matter on this slate, he is the lowest owned. Hunter Green projected for 8% ownership. The only pitchers that are lower are Dakota Hudson. I never play Dakota Hudson. Zach Plesac. I never play Zach Plesac. Devin Smeltzer. Never play him. Jason Alexander. Never play him either. So of the pitchers I would consider worth a shit for fantasy purposes, Hunter Green's the lowest owned, and there is some reason to think there's leverage. He's the number one pitcher for leverage score in our top pitchers tool. And then he's going up against an offense that we've rated out as a little bit over-owned in the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it never feels great to pick on offenses against, or to pick on pitchers going up against the Dodgers offense. But on a smaller slate this afternoon, this kind of seems like a spot where it's going to make some sense. As for the Dodgers as a stack, are you more inclined to be even with the field or underweight to them now that we know what their ownership projection is?
I expect that I end up a little underweight here just because it is still a tough matchup against Green. We have them with a 15% chance of being the top stack, 20% projected ownership. You can get basically half the ownership by going at, half the ownership or even less by going to like any other team on the slate.
Yeah, I was, even though I thought there was a chance the Dodgers would be popular on FanDuel, I wasn't expecting this kind of popularity. Over 20% owned on both sides, nearly 30% on FanDuel. It's a ton of ownership for a pitcher in Hunter Green, who, while he's been a little erratic, I do like the upside in him. So let's get back to the games and moving on to the next one. The Minnesota Twins at home against the Cleveland Guardians. And I don't see anything to like from the pitchers here. 12.4% strikeout rate from Devin Smeltzer, 15.2% from Plesac. I know the pitching depth isn't all that great today, but these aren't guys we could consider today, are they?
Pretty difficult sell for me. I mean, neither matchup is appealing. We don't know what the lineups are going to look like, but Cleveland is typically a difficult team to strike out. The Twins have plenty of power in their lineup. I assume Byron Buxton will be back today after sitting out yesterday. Neither pitcher brings much strikeout upside to the table themselves. Devin Smeltzer's at 12.4% for the season. Zach Plesac's at 15.2. Really, really tough sell on either of these guys.
Yeah, I have no interest in either of them. The initial run that I did, I got to 0 lineups with either of them out of 150 lineups run. But as for the offenses, I think we should be considering them a little bit. So last night's game was really high scoring. It ended up going into the ninth inning with the final score of 11-10. I believe the Guardians ended up winning, if I'm not mistaken. But both teams really had to burn their bullpen last night because there were so many runs scored. Starting pitchers didn't go deep into the game. Now we have a pretty weak pitching matchup between Devin Smeltzer and Zach Plesac. With that in mind, I think these are two very high priority offenses. Bad pitchers, watered down bullpens that had to go deep last night. Are you on the same page with me when it comes to these offenses?
Yep. Minnesota, I think, is going to be the preferable of the two just because they have more good hitters than Cleveland does. But Jose Ramirez is going to stand out as a top third base option. He's going to look great as always. Miles Straw, assuming he's towards the top of the order, is inexpensive. Ahmed Rosario is going to look pretty good. Franmil Reyes at only 2,800 against a left-handed pitcher that does not get strikeouts. That's pretty much the dream for Franmil Reyes. Obviously not having the success this year that he's had in the past, but I'll take him against a guy that doesn't miss bats. I think he looks like a fantastic value option.
Yeah, I think across the board, both these two offenses, if I was locking my lineups right now with the information we have, I think the Minnesota Twins would be my most rostered offense and Cleveland would be second. And I still think that it's a good spot for the Dodgers. I'm just more looking to undercut them relative to the field, considering their ownership. But I think this is a really good spot for both the Twins and the Guardians offenses. I'm just checking to see if we have the lineups out yet. And let's see, scrolling through, we've got the Cubs most recently, but no Guardians lineup, no Twins lineup. By the way, Wilson Contreras is in the Cubs lineup today, batting second once again. So no concerns about him being rested at all. Any other takes for you on the Guardians Twins game?
No, I like the offenses. Again, we'll have to keep an eye out for exactly what these lineups look like. Alex Kirilloff is still 2,500 on DraftKings, so I'll mention that just because he's a top hitting prospect. That is still really cheap. Goes without saying, though, Byron Buxton's going to look great here, assuming he's back in the lineup. Correa looks really good as well. All
right, so let's move on to the next game then, and this is going to be the final game on the DraftKings slate. And then we just have one more game that's going to be featured on FanDuel, but is not on the DK main slate. That's the Mariners A's game, which has a much later start time than all these other games, which are kind of grouped a little bit closer together. But Cardinals Brewers, I've been playing the Cardinals offense a bunch recently. Actually, the last two slates, they were my most rostered offense on both of those. Once was against Chichi Gonzalez, and last night against Eric Lauer, who's kind of starting to fade a little bit as the season went on. He didn't pitch particularly well, but the Cardinals didn't do any damage against the Brewers bullpen after he ended up exiting the game. But for today, if I had to pick one team that's not going to be really popular, so I talked about liking the Guardians, liking the Twins, but they're both picking up some ownership. If I had to pick one team to build my lineups around that's sub 10% owned as a team, I'd be going with the St. Louis Cardinals, because I have no faith that Jason Alexander is a long-term guy who's going to fit into the Brewers rotation. A couple of main reasons. Number one, he's 29 years old and hasn't broken into the big leagues until this point. That's always a red flag for me. He's bounced around the minor leagues for the last handful of years. The other thing too is he's an 8% K rate this year and a 9% walk rate. Cool. I get that he's not allowing a lot of runs. He's a 2.42 ERA. That is simply not sustainable when you have a higher walk rate than a strikeout rate and just don't strike out anybody or generate any swing and misses. I don't think Jason Alexander is any good. Are you going to be on the Cardinals offense today as well?
Yeah, I'm with you. Even at AAA this year, Alexander only struck out like 17.5% of hitters. He has done a good job of getting ground balls and limiting damage. 63.3% ground ball percentage at AAA this year, 54.3% so far in the majors. So that's certainly contributing to the reason, why he's not giving up runs. Only a .062 expected ISO to righties so far in a very limited sample. All that being said, the margin for error for guys that pitch like this and rely on ground balls and don't get strikeouts is so small. Like, you see guys kind of come up and they'll have decent success for a while, and then they just start getting lit up and you never hear from them again. Guys that are able to sustain careers like Dallas Keuchel, for example, Kyle Hendricks, guys like this without missing bats and relying on weak contact are so few and far between that I'm just always going to target them when they come up to the major leagues. And that's no different for Alexander here. We don't have a Cardinals lineup yet, but assuming you're going to get some sort of normal lineup that has Gorman, Arenado, Goldschmidt, Edman, like these guys are all going to look good. Dylan Carlson's still really inexpensive, as is Harrison Bader. So I'm with you. I'm not buying into Jason Alexander consistently being able to avoid runs in the major leagues, and I want to go back to the Cardinals.
Yeah, I have hardly ever rostered the Cardinals this year against right-handed pitching, but we make exceptions to this when Chichi Gonzalez and Jason Alexander are the pitchers who they're going to be going up against. And something else also, coming into the year, I would have thought the Brewers are going to have one of the best rotations in the National League with guys like Corbin Burns, the reigning Cy Young winner. Then you have Freddie Peralta and Brandon Woodruff at the top of the rotation, but there's no Peralta and there's no Woodruff right now. So Brewers kind of in panic mode. That's why you got guys like Jason Alexander and Chichi Gonzalez making starts for them. So top to bottom, I really like getting to the Cardinals offense here. I don't even think it matters whether they're facing a lefty or a righty when the quality of the righty is somebody like a Jason Alexander, who has an 8% strikeout rate. So really good spot, in my opinion, to target the Cardinals. No interest in Jason Alexander. On the other side of the game, Dakota Hudson is going to be pitching for the Cardinals. And he's another one of these guys that we were talking about on this slate where he's had some success in terms of limiting runs, a la Devin Smeltzer type pitcher, but only a 13.4% K rate. So Dakota Hudson, who's also not as cheap as some of the other pitchers at the low strikeout rate numbers, I can't consider him when he has this little strikeout upside.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for me as well. Unless you're just saying, in any individual lineup, he's low owned, but whatever. It's an okay matchup. There are strikeouts to be had in the Milwaukee lineup, but there's also plenty of power here. Hudson has done a good job of limiting it so far this year. Only a 156 expected ISO to righties, 149 to lefties. Actual ISO to both sides of the plate is even lower than that, but 12.8% strikeout percentage against lefties, 14.2 against righties. Kind of a spot where, I don't love the Brewers. I'm not interested in Hudson. If I had to go to one side, I would be looking at some of these power bats on Milwaukee that are likely to benefit from facing a pitcher that doesn't miss bats. Rowdy Tellez at 3,900, Hunter Renfroe at 3,700. These guys have big time power and are likely to be able to put the ball in play here.
Yeah, there's a high ground ball rate for Dakota Hudson, but once again, it's a lot of balls being put in play because he has a 13.4% strikeout rate, 11% walk rate too. So Another guy, he's a 3.31 ERA. He had a 2.08 ERA last. Oh, he only pitched 8 innings all of last year. So whatever, write that off. But yeah, 3.31 ERA. That's not going to uphold when he's generating this little swing and misses. So he's somebody that I do think makes some sense to pick on. That does it for the DraftKings slate. We have the one FanDuel game coming up next to talk about. Do me a favor, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. But even after Adam and I are done with our show, stick around because we're going to have an MLB live before lock where we're going to have, I think it's Josh and Eric. Is that who it's going to be on? Let's see. But anyway, they're going to have all of the ownership, all of the data right there for them. After our show is done, everything will be updated and good to go. Hopefully they should have more lineups as well. And you get a really good sense for who they are actually targeting. But if you guys want access to all the tools and information that we have over at Stokastic for pretty much every single DFS sport out there, you get access to a Stokastic Plus membership package. And if you're signing up for the first time, use the promo code MLBDD. So MLBDD, that's short for deep dive, all capital letters. And if you're signing up for the first time, you'll get 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Stokastic Plus today. And on after us, it is going to be Neil and Eric. All right, my bad. I was giving Josh extra work that he does not want to be doing. But Josh will be on with me tonight for the 3-game slate when we do the later live before lock. But
nice relief for everybody in chat that it's
yeah. Everybody relieved. Although Josh was in chat a little bit earlier. I saw him posting some comments.
I think he's there now. That's the main reason I made fun of him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, don't worry, guys. Josh isn't going to be here, but watch because we've got Neil and Eric. So that all the more reason to stick around after Adam and I are done with this show. But this one final game to talk about from a FanDuel purpose, and this is why the FanDuel slate just looks so much different than the DK slate. Starting for the Mariners and A's, Robbie Ray for Seattle, Frankie Montas for Oakland. As far as FanDuel goes, I mentioned before, these are the two most popular pitchers on the FanDuel slate. Robbie Ray projected for 38% ownership against the Oakland A's. Obviously, it's a good match for him against Oakland, but is that ownership a little high to you?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I think Robbie Ray is very clearly the top pitching option here. He's only 10K, so he's less expensive than Wright. He's less expensive than Kershaw. He's only $200 more than Montas. He's facing a god-awful Oakland team. All of that's great, but for nearly 40% of the field to be rostering him, it's in individual lineups, you can save so much ownership by going to Kyle Wright, who, even though he doesn't project as well, still has a very high ceiling, or going to Kershaw, or going to Green, or going to Alex Wood at 8,600, getting 3% ownership. So I do think Ray is clearly the top guy. Like in cash, I fully expect to have Robbie Ray, but in tournaments, I do kind of just like pivoting away from him in lineups, especially if you have somewhat popular hitters, somewhat popular offenses, just getting away from Ray and going to anybody else.
Somebody really refer to projections as predictions in chat. I missed whatever that comment was, but yeah. So what data is, it's projections and it's scale of outcomes. We've got projected odds for somebody to be the top scoring pitcher on the slate. If we have Robbie Ray projected with a 12.7% chance to be the top scoring pitcher on FanDuel, it doesn't mean we're predicting him to be the top scoring pitcher. It's just these are the odds of him being the top scoring. But as for how I would interpret this data and the projections here, Robbie Ray is the best pitching option on the slate, just from a projection standpoint, the odds of success. But I don't think that he warrants 38% ownership. Robbie Ray has been a little bit high variance this year as is. I know that Oakland doesn't present a difficult matchup. It's as easy as it could be, but we've got a lot of other options to consider. There's Kyle Wright, Frankie Montas, Clayton Kershaw, Hunter Green, Alex Wood against a watered-down Braves lineup. If you're playing a bunch of lineups, absolutely, you're getting some Robbie Ray exposure, but I would be underweight to that 28.4% number and look towards some of these other options who are just much lower owned, like a Clayton Kershaw, Kyle Wright, Alex Wood. But then on the other side of the game, Frankie Montas, he's also going to be popular on FanDuel. Not quite as popular as Robbie Ray, but 24% owned. Do you like some of the leverage he offers off of Robbie Ray, just from a standpoint of if the A's win the game, Frankie Montas gets the win bonus? Those are fantasy points Robbie Ray would not be getting.
Yeah, I mean, I like I agree with that, and I know that's a point you make a lot. That I think is a good point and kind of interesting to think about. Like normally, you kind of can't get that much leverage outside of stacking against them. You can't really get leverage against popular pitchers, but that is one point where if Montas wins, Ray obviously didn't. But the thing for me is that Montas is getting a lot of ownership as well, and he does have a more difficult matchup against Seattle. He's still a good pitcher. He has a 25.2% strikeout percentage, 3.11 xFIP. So I get why he's getting the ownership as well. But I kind of just view Ray and Montas as really similar, where I think that they are the top two pitching options, but I also think that the ownership is just kind of getting carried away going to them over guys like Wright, Kershaw, Green, Wood.
Yeah, and it's so much. I mean, Robbie Ray is the most popular player on DraftKings or FanDuel for that matter, and FanDuel has a little bit bigger of a slate than what DraftKings has. Considering all the ownership going to the pitchers in this spot, do you have any interest in getting to the offenses against them?
Not particularly. I mean, it's not a good park for hitting. The A's can't hit. The Mariners can, but still not a particularly appealing matchup against Montas. It's more likely to be a spot. Like if you play a little bit different strategy than me and you typically just target popular pitchers, that's fine. I mean, it's not like it's a bad strategy. For me personally, I expect more so to just maybe not be getting to these pitchers as much and just hope that some combination of Green, Wright, Wood, Kershaw beats them, and that'll be enough for me, because I think there's just a lot of the time where you're going to get good outings from these guys, but like maybe you can just still beat them with one of the other pitchers.
Yeah, and once again, a lot of other pitchers to get to. The top pitchers tool indicates there's other players who have similar probability of success as what we're looking at on Robbie Ray. And that doesn't mean that Robbie Ray isn't rightfully the top projected pitcher to have the most overall fantasy points and the best odds of being number one overall. It just doesn't quite equate to the 38.4% number. And there's just other guys on this pitching slate on the high end, particularly for FanDuel purposes, that I think make some sense. So we only have a few minutes left here before we turn over to Live Before Lock, which we now know is going to be Neil and Eric. Apparently Josh was originally on the early show and he willingly swapped to the late show. So maybe he just wanted to hang out with me for an extra hour. Maybe it was something else. Oh, by the way, is that true? Twins. So we just got the Twins lineup out. This is actually something good to react to. Twins lineup out. No Byron Buxton today. I guess in hindsight, that's not all that surprising considering they're trying to be cautious with his health and keep him healthy all year.
He sat yesterday too, though.
No, yeah, you're right. He did sit yesterday. Maybe he's dealing with an injury then that we just don't know about.
He has to be.
Yeah, so no Buxton today. Arise, Correa, Kepler, Sanchez, Kirilloff, Urshela, Larnach, Miranda, Gordon. So with no Buxton in the lineup, how does this change your outlook for the Minnesota Twins?
It really doesn't. Obviously, I would prefer to stack the Twins with Buxton than without him, but it's not like it's going to make me want to play a bunch of Zach Plesac. You still have good hitters, good power in this lineup. Kirilloff hitting fifth, I think, still looks like a really good value. Arias, Correa, Kepler, Sanchez, I think it goes without saying, are good. Urshela and Larnach are fine as well. So I still like the Twins. I just would like them more if they had their best hitter.
Yeah, here's one thing that I think it will do for me, though. Before I was talking about offenses, I'm going to get to a ton. And I had said that I thought that the Twins and Guardians would be my two most rostered offenses. I like the Cardinals a little bit better than the Twins now. Cardinals going up against Jason Alexander. Twins lineup doesn't have Buxton in it. We'll see what the updated ownership looks like when it comes out. But I think that the Cardinals are going to be, and I mean, I've been riding the Cardinals lately anyway, but once again, looks like it's going to be another spot where I'm on the Cardinals. So last couple of minutes, let's round it up like this. Who is your favorite high-end pitching option? If you were to submit your lineups right now, who would be the pitcher that you get the most exposure to on the high end?
So I'm on the wrong screen. On DraftKings, probably Kershaw, maybe Wood. The 15% ownership on Wood is pretty nice. On FanDuel, in terms of the most, probably Robbie Ray. I just don't think that I get to the 38% that the field is at. But I also really like Alex Wood at 8,600 and only 3% ownership there.
All right. And then
I guess one thing to clarify there with Ray too, because it really just all comes back to what the rest, like what my lineups look like, because and like Alex and I talked about this a lot yesterday. Typically, I'm much more willing to just eat chalk with pitching than I am with hitting, because for one, it only takes up one spot in your lineup as opposed to half of your lineup. And two, there's just pitchers are more projectable than hitters are, just because of the way scoring works. So that's why. But if, for example, I'm playing a good amount of like Dodgers and Cardinals and Twins, like these teams that are getting ownership, then I'm less likely to have a lot of Robbie Ray, because it's going to be difficult to play Robbie Ray's ownership combined with the ownership going to those stacks. If I'm playing, I don't know, the Rockies and the A's and the Reds or something like that, then there's no reason for me not to have Robbie Ray in a lot of those lineups.
All right, that is going to do it for us. If you guys haven't done already, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, but also don't go anywhere. Neil and Eric are going to be up next, breaking down live before lock and going through all their player exposures for the slate. Good luck today, guys.
Welcome in, Odd Shopper family. Appreciate you hanging with us here. And if you can, please hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already for everything. And also subscribe, as it's not just these no-run first inning plays that we have for you on channel. Ben Ross's Sharp Play of the Day. Everything that you can possibly imagine from a betting standpoint, we have you covered here on the Odd Shopper channel. And yes, 3 plays. We'll tell you all about this great no-brainer offer. We have a promo code for you, courtesy of BetMGM, but we do have 3 plays, and we always target certain things depending on the game, the slate, just the circumstances when it comes to the first inning. And looking at this Astros-Yankees game, there's going to be a reason. There's going to be one variable that's going to push us to the side of a no-run first inning. So let's get there at least, and knowing, of course, we'll start at BetMGM, but really understanding why we're attacking this from that standpoint of a no-run first inning. Also note, you've got an 8-run total here in New York. So we'll go on down to our first inning prop. And will there be a first inning run? No, right now sitting at -120. And here's why. The Yankees are second best in all of baseball when it comes to giving up runs per first inning to opponents, and that's 0.25. That's a hell of a number to work with right there. Now, when it comes to scoring, they're at 0.61 runs per first inning at home. Houston, though, only at 0.41 on the road. So it's not like they're blowing outdoors by any means. And you can see as we do this, things shift live. So that's now -125. But the reality is that the Yankees are so good when it comes to limiting opponents at home, 0.25 runs per first inning. And Houston doesn't blow any doors off here. You would have to have a really bad pitching matchup. And that's what we talk a lot about when it comes to identifying the best value on top of the number. It's also, where is this matchup most vulnerable? Meaning, where can we take best advantage of a situation? Sometimes it's hitters. Sometimes it's the 1 through 3 on a smoking hot lineup, which we'll talk about tonight with the Padres. In this case, the pitching matchup is not featuring at least one guy who's going to be prone to giving up a ton. In fact, when you look at it, Jameson Taillon, Framber Valdez, each coming in with ERAs under 2.8. This is a strong enough weight right here to shade this to a no, just understanding that nobody on the mound. Sometimes you have a guy coming in, you 0.67 ERA, stinks, he's given up a ton. We don't have that variable here, and that's why it's key to take advantage of that when we're targeting first innings, because the starting pitching can be such a difference maker. Now, you want to talk about a difference maker. How about your bankroll? We told you about this, right? Free money awaits you here at BetMGM. And on top of that, we now have our own promo code here for the first inning bets. All right, so this is what you do. It's really simple. You can sign up. You can click that link below, or you can use our code OSNRFI. All right, OSNRFI, or click that link below, and it will take you the same spot to BetMGM. And when you sign up, you have to deposit at least $10 and then bet that $10 on any baseball game, any MLB game, and you're going to get $200 back in your account. It's that easy. It's that simple. It's free money. It's a no-brainer offer. If you haven't signed up at BetMGM, we're just giving you this free money. Here, take it. It's in your account. $200. What? You missed that? That's fine. There's a link below. You can click that. You could use our promo code.
True.
Good morning, all y'all. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Stokastic. Good to have you. This is the MLB Live Before Lock show presented by Prize Picks. I'm Eric Lindquist. Let's talk through this 6/7 gamer. If you're playing over on FD on the blue site, hit that like button, subscribe button. I will say they did a fantastic job on the earlier show. I was up, I was building lineups, I was working through, all the things. But but they didn't get that light count up. And that's disappointing to me, especially when I know, well, it doesn't matter. I got Neil Orfield here at Player Q DFS, host of the High Stakes podcast. He's going to give you all the great information, and he, I promise you, is worth hitting that like button. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing well. This is super early for me, but I just realized I probably shouldn't complain about having to do a show at 10 a.m. my time when it's 8 a.m. where you are. So I won't complain about having to work so early. I'm excited about this slate. I agree with what they said on the last show. It's good to just get the slate out of the way early, kind of be done work. I got softball tonight, so excited to just kind of relax after getting these lineups in.
I was going to say, you skipped out on an NBA Finals watch along to play some softball. Tell the people. I mean, here's the thing. There are two types of softball players. There's the speedster, and there's the kind of person that basically just like makes contact, the speedster type. You don't tickle me as that. You seem like you're up there to hit bombs and bombs only. Is that right?
I am neither, because I am really bad. I never played baseball. It's probably my worst sport of the major sports. I also never played hockey other than like roller hockey in my driveway. So I might be worse at hockey, but I'm a terrible baseball player. And I am the pitcher. That's my one usefulness to my softball team. I'm the person who is willing to pitch. Everybody else is like, no, that's way too close to the hitters. So I'm willing to take a shot to the body, I guess, more so than most. But yeah, I hit like 333 in slow pitch beer league softball, which is really bad. And I never hit anything other than singles. If I try to swing for power, I just miss completely. I have to swing slowly to make contact with the ball. So sadly, Neil, I wish that I was a power hitter.
How good are you at drinking?
I'm good at drinking.
There it is.
Yeah, that is another usefulness that I have. As long as I'm not driving, I'm happy to have a few beers during the game, and generally they let us do that. You're not supposed to in the parks here, but generally they let us.
It's the responsible way to live your life. What Tyler?
Yeah, I have to ask Neil. So do you just assert dominance first pitch on the mound and hit the first guy in the batter's box to let him know?
You got to.
Okay, all right. I'm glad we're on the same page of managerial tactics.
Slow pitch, Tyler. Slow pitch.
Yeah, slow pitch into the ribs. I try to
put a little bit of extra juice on that first pitch when I'm hitting them, kind of scaring them away from the box. But yeah, still pretty slow. Still going about 40 miles per hour. No, that's still pretty fast. Still going like maybe 20 miles per hour. I have no idea what the speeds are that we pitch at slow pitch softball.
It's like 20. It's. Hang on. Yeah, who's the guy who threw the absolute duck to Higashioka when the Yankees scored like 17 runs? Higashioka hit his double dong that won me the $4, and I'm trying to remember who that was off of. It was an absolute butter. It was like the slowest pitch ever hit for a home run in the StatCast era. I found that to be fun. It was sub 40 miles per hour. Go ahead and Google it.
I do remember it, but
somebody's going to know. Position player. Yeah. No, Neil is a position player up there, slow pitching softballs. But either way, I'm glad you get to go enjoy yourself. But let's enjoy ourselves now. Let's get to work. We've got a lot to get to. We've got a lineup. Well, we still need the St. Louis lineup. I really, really want the St. Louis lineup badly, but we always go position by position. So we got to start with the pitchers. If you guys have checked it out, everything's updated here. All the tools at Stokastic. So hit that. Be ready to rock. I have good juju in terms of what I think you plan to do in terms of leverage, and I'm going to be on that same picture. But we start with the chalkier options: Clayton Kershaw and Kyle Wright. At the top of the board, those are your two most expensive pitchers. Neil, which one do you prioritize on a day like today?
Probably Clayton Kershaw. Let me pull
that
up.
That did not sound very confident.
I do not feel that confident in it. So there are a number of kind of interesting pitchers on the mound today. I feel like it's going to be Kershaw in a matchup with Cincinnati, but I haven't actually looked at the top pitchers tool since we got ownership, which is going to obviously affect things. I'm not really concerned about Kershaw's pitch count. As they were saying on the last show, I think that he's probably going to get to around 90 some pitches, which is plenty for Clayton Kershaw against Cincinnati. All right. Yeah. So Kyle Wright is coming in at higher projected ownership than Kershaw. Yeah, it's probably going to be Kershaw for me. How about you? Do you have a strong take here?
Well, I mean, just in terms of looking at the two most expensive pitchers on the board, there aren't going to be a lot of lineups where you want to, well, there will be a lot of lineups where people have both of them, but I won't. I think I'm going to be getting to more Clayton Kershaw. It's just really the matchup. You're looking at Cincinnati against left-handed pitching. They've been a little bit better. It's just not a team, though, that I find myself all that enamored to get to. Look at this lineup. I mean, it's just complete filth. 96 WRC plus, 22.5% K percentage in Great American Ballpark, the Great American Small Park, as it's better known for the DFS community. I just look at the 3.5 implied run total. And then I look at also San Francisco on the other side in hot, steamy weather in Atlanta with a 4.1 implied total. Vegas expects fewer runs here. And I expect Kershaw to be more stretched out here in this spot. I think it all kind of trends towards getting to more Kershaw. So, I mean, Kyle Wright, I totally get it. He's been awesome this year. But you're looking at Kershaw, who's been awesomer, 27.2%. That's bad language, especially for a guy who, used to work at Awesemo, now is at Stokastic. I should be able to say awesome puns and have it work better than that. But I'm with you. I think Kershaw is the guy that we're kind of looking at the top of the board. I'll have shares of both, but slight preference. Well, not even slight, a stronger preference for Clayton Kershaw. I'm going to be nearly 45-50% as it looks like in my builds as it stands. But the guy who really stands out to me is next down on the board, and that's Hunter Green. He's got massive amounts of leverage, now up to 10% ownership, a little bit higher. I'm looking at spots where he's projected around 4 or 5%. And I don't know. Obviously, a date with the Dodgers is not going to be something a lot of people want to be screwing with, but still, I want to be getting to my favorite young pitcher in baseball. The K stuff is too good to be ignored. I just absolutely love seeing a 30% K percentage at 10% on a 6-game slate. What are you planning to do with him specifically?
Yeah, I'll be overweight to the field. I'm on the same page as you. Anytime you see 10% projected ownership on a pitcher with a 23.6% chance of being one of the top 2 pitchers on the slate, that's something I want to take advantage of. I get it why he's getting such low ownership against the Dodgers. I don't love playing pitchers against the Dodgers either, but he is talented enough that he can obviously get it done. And the 23.6% number as a top 2 pitcher bears that out. It's also major leverage on a very chalky Dodgers team, which I love that too. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to be definitely above that 10% number, probably above 20% Hunter Green. I don't know if I'm going to get to 30, 40%. I might just because there's such positive leverage there. But as I told you, I have not actually made my lineups yet, but I'm going to be going out of my way to try to get above the field on Hunter Green for sure.
Well, I mean, it's hard to have your lineups in when the team I want to get to the most on this slate, the Cardinals, they don't have their lineup out. Exactly. So I'm hoping we can get that here. Otherwise, I'm just going to run in my projected lineup and just kind of fire it up from there. So yeah, if you guys are, playing along at home, obviously, Neil and I are going to be crunching lineups live on the show. Yeah, I'm going a little aggressive today. It's been a fun week. We're going to have some fun, but moving down the board. Go ahead.
Eric, I've changed my process a little bit recently just because it has not been working this year as well as it worked last year. And I don't know if that's a bad idea because I did really well, just kind of, going exactly off of the top stacks tool last year, just kind of like figuring out where I wanted to play teams relative to top stack odds. I have been cutting down my team pool a little bit this year. So I've been playing, depending on the size of the slate, just, 5 teams or 10 teams and just saying, I'm not even going to try to play some of these teams. Like Cincinnati would be an example that, earlier in the year, I probably would have played some Cincinnati because they're projected for 1.5% ownership on the stack with a 2.7% chance of being the top stack on the board. I've kind of decided to switch it up and just focus on getting more of the teams that I actually want to play and playing a higher number of those teams. So like today, I'm not going to be getting to any Cincinnati against Clayton Kershaw just because I think that even though there is positive leverage to be had there, I'm going to be taking advantage of getting more positive leverage on some of the teams that I'd rather play that have higher odds of success. And I'm also not going to be playing the Dodgers today against Hunter Green. I think I'm just going to completely not have them in my in terms of I shouldn't say I'm not going to have any Dodgers bats. I'm not going to have any full Dodgers stacks in DraftKings. Gotcha. So I'm not going to have any 5-man Dodgers stacks or 4-man Dodgers stacks here. I'm going to be getting lower than that. So that's an adjustment that I've made recently. It's actually been working fairly well. I still have not won any tournaments yet this year, which has been pretty brutal because at this point I probably won 6 last year. It's been pretty rough, but I have been getting very close, much more since I've made this adjustment. So that is an adjustment. So as we talk about this, I'll tell you about some of the teams that I'm actually going to play and some teams that I'm just going to have 0 shares of.
Well, I love that. I mean, obviously you do the high stakes podcast where it's very process driven. I know you've done a lot of other great contact. I'll just say the name Blender. I know that you've gone back and forth and done a lot of great stuff with him, talking through strategy, talking about slates, talking about the nuances of DFS rather than just, hey, here are my picks, play them. Especially in baseball, I find that to be not really fruitful. I mean, yesterday it's like, yeah, I'm going to play a ton of Paul Goldschmidt. That's going to go well. But there's times when it's far more important to talk about the way that you're going to be constructing your lineups so that you guys can understand it's okay to play chalk. Like I'm going to have some 5-man Dodger stacks. I'm not going to completely write them off, but I'm going to be lower on the field as a 5-man when you look at 21% ownership share. And when I am going to be stacking them up, Alex talks about this a lot, and there's a great article now at Stokastic that you can check out for all of you guys that are starting to tip your toes into the MLB DFS streets post NBA. But the secondary stack are basically what you're doing with your one-offs or your 2-1s or your 3 portions of 5-man along with that secondary stack on DraftKings. That can be where you really find some leverage. And like yesterday for me, I finished second in the second iteration of the $15 on DK. And it just came down to making one smart decision, which was I'm going to have Gio Urshela show up as a one-off in a lot of these lineups that have Baltimore and Chicago. And so it allowed for me to get one bat I knew was going to be 2 or 3%. And I thought he was in a good spot. I thought he had a lot of lineup protection ahead of him. I think Alex Kirilloff was one of my highest known batters. So I was like, well, in that event, I have to play this guy behind him and find certain spots like that. Now, again, that worked out really, really well. He had the perfect situation. He hits a 7th or 8th inning bomb and life is good, but it doesn't always work out that way. It's just making smart decisions and making sure that it's like, I know this batter is going to be super low owned. I can play him alongside chalk.
Yeah, I like that. Taking stands and just thinking really more about individual plays that you want, decisions that you want to make. So for me, it's still more stack based. I still don't make that many in terms of batters. I don't make that many decisions myself. I think that it's probably something that I need to work on because that's something that I talked about with Aha Bro. I've talked about, he sometimes will make decisions about the types of players that he's willing to have as one-offs. And I don't really do anything like that. I just kind of let the projections tell me. And that's probably something that I should still be more thoughtful about. So I like that idea of just deciding, what I think Urshela is going to be somebody that is going to be a low owned one-off that I can play within chalky lineups. I think that's a really smart decision.
Last thing to kind of close the loop on that before we get back into pitching. And I don't know, maybe this is just, as I've been very fortunate the last couple of weeks playing MLB DFS. And I would say some of my prize picks bets haven't been going as well, but I've been putting in a lot of research for those. I do a VOD over on the Odd Shopper channel. I'll have one out for the 3-game slate here later this afternoon. We've got a meeting coming up later, but I'm definitely going to get one of those videos out for you guys over on the Odd Shopper channel. Go ahead and give those a view, check those out. But I've been really cross-referencing a lot of home run odds, and not just with what exists over in Vegas, but we now have the top batters tool. And Sean Zahn put this together, and it is so, so cool. And it helps you get a little context of where some lower owned one-offs might be that have really good chances of hitting home runs. I'm looking at William Contreras and Travis d'Arnaud there, 2 and 3 there. You can basically look at what their opportunities to homer is, what their value score is, position by position, the whole way down. The one batter from Cincinnati that I think I'm going to be above on, it looks like just based on this tool, is going to be Tommy Pham. I try to bring over some of those numbers and at least give myself some opportunities to get some leverage. You might as well get the 3-hole hitter up against the actually competent hitter there up against Clayton Kershaw for a little bit of leverage. But I mean, you look at some of his home run odds, it's not that far away from Hunter Renfroe, Juan Yepez, Jack Sawinski. I mean, it's just crazy to see some of the names in this range. And then Mike Yastrzemski a little bit lower, Christian Yelich way lower. It's just great visualization for me to be able to be like, all right, I like this 2-man. I like this 3-man. I'll give them a bump. Or in a spot like that, if I'm going to be playing a chalky lineup with, a chalkier stack, like the Dodgers, hey, Tommy Pham immediately inserted. That's going to trim a lot of the concerns I have about ownership.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably one of the reasons that I've never made those individual decisions about bats is because we haven't had this tool in the past, and now we have a good mechanism for making that decision. So that's probably something that I should be incorporating a little bit more.
Yeah. Shout out Sean Zahn. My God, I just love that thing. I hope you guys like it too, because he was winning 100K a night. So I was like, I'm going to try to steal something from his process, going to lineup rewind. another great feature you can get through Fantasy Cruncher. Get that add-on, be able to review lineups. It has changed the way I look at MLB DFS because I was doing a lot of stuff wrong at the beginning of the year. And now I feel like I'm figuring it out a little bit better. Steve Buzzard's had some amazing results too. Should have won a GPP 2 nights ago. I'm still upset for our guy. That's for sure. Why did Ohtani have to be a god back-to-back night? Well, last night I was, dude, 2 nights ago, the double dong, hurt me. And then I saw what happened to him. I was like, that's a lot worse. That's a lot worse. But Let's continue. We're back to pitching. Hopefully you guys enjoy talking through some strategy rather than just the picks. But we have 55 minutes for 6 games. We were always going to have plenty of time here. But we continue on, my friend. Alex Wood, obviously this game environment, an afternoon game in Atlanta, not exactly going to be a great pitching spot for Alex Wood. 90 degrees, wind blowing out, and a really good, even this watered down version of Atlanta lineup. There's still some power that you can mine out. You get both catchers in that lineup, and they're both guys who have been phenomenal this entire season. I look at other guys on the pitching board, and it doesn't really seem like they fall anywhere close to Alex Wood for me. He's another guy that alongside Hunter Green, I want to get to quite a bit of. How do you feel about Alex Wood on today's slate?
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. No Ronald Acuna, no Austin Riley. I'm trying to remember. There were a few of their better batters are not in the lineup today. So love that for Alex Wood. And he looks great in the top pitches to a 13.8% projected ownership, 18.3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. He has a 22.8% strikeout rate on the year. Pretty solid. His whip 1.31. That's not great. 3.79 expected ERA. That's not particularly great. It's pretty mediocre, but still 9,000 against this watered down Braves lineup. And the Braves have some strikeouts in the lineup too. So even though they're a team that always has a chance of putting up a lot of runs, they're also a team that strikes out a lot. So I like the matchup for Wood. I like the price tag, and I like the ownership. So I'm going to be over the weight to Wood for sure.
Overweight to Wood. Overweight. Yeah, let's go. That's weird. I don't know why I said that. It's cringe. Jose Quintana getting a ton of ownership. Let's talk some of the chalkier options here at the bottom end of the board, especially for DraftKings purposes. FanDuel, I don't think you really have to think about it too much. Robbie Ray is pulling so much ownership for FanDuel. We'll talk about him last to kind of close the loop and give all you blue site people the attention that you so rightfully deserve. But I want to talk Quintana and I want to talk Braxton Garrett, because if you're trying to save money, those are really your 2 options. And I prefer one strongly over the other. I will let you be the judge, and I'll let you guess which one. Who do you prefer, Quintana or Garrett today?
Ooh, Garrett is so much cheaper.
Sure is.
Quintana, 31% ownership. I guess if I have to choose between, I'm going to go with Garrett. He's 5,400.
Oh, yeah.
He's getting lower ownership than Quintana. He has just 1% less chance to be a top 2 pitcher on the slate. Garrett coming in at 15.4% chance. Quintana 16.4. Garrett's also a 36.8% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher on the board. So yeah, it has to be Garrett here. It's going to be Garrett in a landslide for me. How about you?
It's Garrett. I'm going to Braxton Garrett in much more bulk. He's way cheaper. This Quintana ownership just throws me off. I don't really know what to make of it, but I hate it. I don't like it. I'm not going to be anywhere close to it. So, we're looking at a 20% K percentage for Jose Quintana. And you get all these righties in this lineup. You get Morel back in it after taking the day off yesterday. You get Ian Happ, Wisdom, Gomes. Sure, Jonathan VR strikes out quite a bit. Wisdom strikes out quite a bit. Even Morel at the top of the lineup, 28.5% K percentage. So maybe there are some strikeouts available for it. But the guy has a 501 expected slugging. And the roof is back on top of the thing in Miami today after yesterday. Out of the middle of nowhere, I've never seen an alert that said roof open in Miami. I forgot they could even do that, because it feels like they never do throughout a baseball season. But Garrett, yeah, it hasn't been good so far, a 496 expected slugging, but we're just starting to get more of a sample size here. He's literally had less than 1,000 pitches at the big league level. He's 24. He's a massive prospect, or was once upon a time, 2016. He was a really young prospect then, but he was a first rounder, 7th pick. And I just feel like eventually here, Miami finds ways to make these guys better. And I'm not saying he's definitely the worst of the starters that they have there in Miami. They have an amazing rotation. And it could be getting deeper at some point. I mean, if they quit trading away arms, like, I don't know, Zach Gallen or whatever else. But either way, I'm looking at Braxton Garrett as a guy that I don't really know what to make of him. I know exactly what to make of Jose Quintana, and it's not good. So I'm going to take the unknown that's less than $2,000 less. Like, it just makes no sense to me that people would want to play Quintana more against the Cubs than they want to play Colorado outside of Coors.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like a relatively easy decision the more I look at Quintana versus Garrett. I mean, Quintana does have slightly better numbers in terms of he has a 20.1% strikeout rate to Garrett's 16.4. That's a pretty small sample size for Garrett this year. Quintana has a 4.98 expected ERA. So it's not like that's a great number there. Garrett does have 5.41 expected ERA. But again, yeah, I'd rather take the up and coming guy than the guy who's kind of on the downside of his career, and we kind of already know who he is. And Rockies outside of Coors is a lineup that I would rather target than the Cubs. So yeah, I'm with you. And also the Rockies have a 3.7 run implied total. The Cubs have 4.5. So to the extent that you want to factor that in, I think everything kind of is leading me to Garrett above Quintana here. I also, another adjustment that I've kind of made recently is after reading Alex did a whole article about how to be successful at MLB DFS. And he pointed out that in general, pros are willing to eat the chalk more. So that is something that I actually haven't been making these decisions as much the past couple of weeks. I've just been kind of allowing Fantasy Cruncher to give me what it gives me based on the Osmo projections. So to some extent, I'm like, well, I just am going to take what it gives me. But I imagine Fantasy Cruncher is going to be giving me Braxton Garrett over Jose Quintana anyway. And if it doesn't, this might be one of those, I still make some exceptions for pitchers that I'm like, well, I want to be different than what I'm getting naturally. So this might be a spot where I would force myself to get to more Garrett than Quintana. Mm-hmm.
If I'm with
and the only reason that I think that it might go the other way is because I'm not going to be playing Dodgers full stacks. And I think Dodgers full stacks is where I might be naturally getting to Garrett because they're more expensive. They're one of the more expensive teams on the slate. So, in the event that Quintana actually projects better than Garrett, I might be getting Quintana just because I am not playing Dodgers. But anyway, yeah, I think Garrett is a better play is the bottom line.
There you go. I'm with you. I think that he's a guy that we're going to take shots on. So I'm going to play some bats on the other side because why wouldn't I want to get some CJ Cron in my life? He seems pretty good at baseball. Shout out former Twin for us. Rip City. Those were good days. The Bomba squad. Oh, Nelson Cruz, come back to me.
Yeah, those were good days.
I flew back for that game 3 against the Yankees. That was a bad idea. That was an expensive screw.
You should know better by now. Twins versus Yankees. You don't want it.
But whatever. It was still fun. Let's see. We have other pitchers that exist here on the board, and none of them are all inspiring. I will say I'm getting to Kyle Freeland. When you see identical top 2 pitcher percentage for Kyle Freeland and Jose Quintana, my brain goes, well, I just play Kyle Freeland. And I don't really like him, but I'm going to just go with the data. And if you give me the identical guy for cheaper, or the exact same top 2 pitcher percentage for cheaper, I think that's another natural pivot. It's just sending Quintana way, way down on my board. Is Kyle Freeland somebody that you're interested, or Justin Steele? Anybody else in this mid-range you find yourself landing on?
Freeland looks kind of interesting at 15.6% projected ownership, 14.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, and then 21.1% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. Pitching in Miami instead of Colorado is obviously a pretty huge upgrade for Kyle Freeland. So yeah, I think I might have a little bit of interest in Kyle Freeland. Man, Zach Plesac, I don't know it. Like the top pitchers tool tells me that I should like Zach Plesac, but he's one of those guys that just because I'm willing to get a little bit chalkier with pitcher, I think I'm just not going to get there. So in the top pitchers tool, 4.5% projected ownership with a 9.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher and a 19.9% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. So there are reasons to get to Zach Plesac. He's just not a good pitcher. He doesn't have a ton of upside. So I think, if he's not a guy that I'm going to be forcing in if I don't get there naturally in Fantasy Cruncher. I guess that's what I'll say about Zach Plesac. Mm-hmm. I would rather target bats against Zach Plesac than actually play Zach Plesac, given that what are his numbers? 15.2% strikeout rate. That doesn't that doesn't move the needle for me. 6.46 expected ERA. I mean, yeah, I'd rather play Twins bats against Zach Plesac. I'm sad that Buxton isn't in the lineup today, so it's not as fun playing Twin stacks, but there's just not a whole lot to love about Zach Plesac. Are you going to be getting to some Plesac?
I have none right now, but I'm still waiting for the St. Louis lineup. I'm really hoping we get it. That would be awesome, just so that I can have it put together, done, move on with my day. But speaking of Plesac, El Negro Loco, the news god himself, coming in with a $5 super chat. You don't have to do that, my friend, but you know what? Hey, company man, that's for sure. Love you, Loco. Good morning, fellas. Good morning, my friend. Thoughts on Zach Plesac strikeout prop over for 3.5? I think it's a great number. I actually, so we have over at OddsShopper right now. If you guys head to oddshopper.com, sign up with an email address, and you're set to go. We have him projected for 4.1. I have him a little bit higher than that, around 4.4. And the main difference is that you get Larnach in this lineup instead of Buxton. Not something I expected. And Alex Kirilloff, the dude had over a 1.4 OPS for the last month in AAA St. Paul. Feel like I've just said that fact the last 2 days, just trying to bust into people's heads. Alex Kirilloff is very, very different than the Alex Kirilloff we saw, both of his stints now in the big leagues. But you get Larnach, 31.1% K percentage. That is a little bit higher than Byron Buxton and definitely less of a lethal bat, even though Larnach 495 expected slugging. No slouch in terms of power. Lots of power in this Minnesota lineup, but it's up to 4 now on Prize Picks. I'm staying away there. But if you have 3.5 and it's not juiced very heavily, there is a little bit of meat on that bone, my friend. Minus 120, the over 3.5, over to Sportsbook, over on OddsShopper. If you're getting that kind of juice, I think it's a decent enough bet. What say you, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a great bet to me if you're getting that kind of juice. And it seems like your projection is pretty significantly higher than 3.5. So I like that number, taking the over there.
Yeah, 4.4. I mean, you land on 4 half the time in that kind of a situation. You're already, more than half, way more than half. You're looking really, really good there. So check that out, Loco. Best of luck to you, my friend. Jorge Yakum, who would you fade from the pitchers on DK for large GPP multi-entry? That is a $10 super chat. You are so appreciated, my dude. For me, my answer would just be however many lineups you're making. I mean, you're gonna open up that player pool in terms of pitchers. The more lineups you make in a 20 max, there are guys like Zach Plesac, Dakota Hudson, Devin Smeltzer, Jason Alexander. I would get 0 of. Like, I will just flat out get 0. But as you get to like 50, 100, 150 lineups, you're going to start getting shares of those guys in there. I think for the most part in a 20 max, I'm playing every single pitcher not named Plesac, Smeltzer, Hudson, Alexander. You could probably get to shares of any of those guys, and I wouldn't say it's probably a mistake. But Neil, what do you think? Who would you fade today for large entry GPPs?
Yeah, so I was going to try and run a crunch real quick to answer that question, just to kind of see what I get to naturally, because it's hard to kind of know exactly which pitchers I'm getting to in Fantasy Cruncher without having run the crunch. But just, my gut would be that I'm going to be fading. Yeah, I'm with you definitely on Jason Alexander, Devin Smeltzer, Dakota Hudson, Zach Plesac. I think those are the main guys that I would be fading, full fading on this slate. Everybody else I have some interest in. You could full fade Jose Quintana just because he's getting so much ownership, but again, that's not an approach that I think I'm taking, where I'm full fading pitchers. I'm more trying to get unique with bats. So I think that's kind of the list for me.
I was getting way too much Cleveland. I accidentally put something in that was not supposed to be happening in my life. Let's fix that. All right, it's fixed. Now I can live my life. That's good. Very important stuff. All right. Anything else that you really want to discuss in terms of pitchers? Because I think we've kind of ran the gamut on it.
Yeah, I think that we've done a pretty good job talking about it. Justin Steele, I don't know how much we talked about him, but 7,200 against him. Pittsburgh is pretty interesting. He's going a little bit over-owned in the top pitchers duel, but that he's a guy that if I get over the field on Justin Steele, I'm perfectly happy with it, just because it's such a great matchup with Pittsburgh at this at a 7,200 price tag. I feel like we've kind of talked about every pitcher that I have interest in, though. 6-game slate, pretty easy to do, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I was watching you. Your internet was holding on there for a second. It was having fun.
Oh, mine was? Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was having some fun. But we're good. Tyler's given the head of approval, the nod of approval. So we're all good in that regard. What would be really good for all of you guys out there is if you checked out the Stokastic tools and content that we have every single day for free today MLB player projections. But if you want those MLB player projections day in, day out, which we have over 100 days of regular season baseball left. Yeah, you heard me. 100 days left. You want to be using these day in, day out. Try to be a long-term winning player. And the way you do that is with our tools and content using MLB Live, all caps, one word, to get 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus. Not just player projections, but the top pitchers tool, top batters tool I just talked about, which Sean's on. Again, what an absolute beast monster in the MLB streets. Check out this tool. It is just so good. All of these things developed. Alex Baker, he's still hanging out with us. He still loves us, and we still love him very, very much. He is constantly updating ownership projections, the lineup builder, premium Discord channel. Everybody's hanging out in there, and so much more. So check out MLB Live for 50% off your first month. Stop guessing, start winning, and join us here at Stokastic. Also, it's every single sport, not just MLB. We have NASCAR, we have PGA, we have everything for you. So please check out this offer, MLB Live, all caps, one word. All right, let's do it. We are talking stacks. And I don't know. I kind of pulled the rug out from Greg right off the bat, and I just asked him this question. So I'm going to ask it to you. I'm going to put you in the fire.
Oh, no. All right.
One stack to rule them all, one stack to find them. Lord of the Rings style. Who are you riding with?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. So I just refreshed the top stack tool to see if anything has changed significantly.
Because I taught you how to do the single entry process. Well, I taught you what your process was.
You said you explained to me what I'm doing, how I'm choosing.
I was like, I'll just tell you who Neil's favorite stack is. But I think that it's a little bit more nuanced today, especially because there's some individual ownership on certain batters, on certain teams that I think we can kind of gear away from. And then there's ones like, I don't know, St. Louis is low everywhere, and it just looks so appealing to me.
Yeah. So I feel like this is one where there are several good options. It's probably either the Cubs or St. Louis for me. I mean, St. Louis against Jason Alexander is just so juicy. Like, how do you not love that matchup when they're coming in under own? They don't look the best in the top stack tool. So based on my usual process, it would probably be Atlanta, I guess, is coming in only 7% projected ownership with a 9.2% chance to be in the top stack on the board. But they are facing Alex Wood, and I don't love that matchup nearly as much. And they don't have Ronald Acuna in the lineup. I mean, they're missing some of their key pieces. So it's hard for me to really want to target Atlanta as my number one when St. Louis is, I mean, I guess we haven't seen St. Louis's lineup, so maybe that lineup is going to be shit too, but probably not. They're probably going to throw out major league batters, and any major league batter against Jason Alexander is just going to look pretty good. I feel like that's yours though, so I don't want to steal your thunder and take St. Louis. So I'll go with the Cubs instead against Jose Quintana. We talked about it. It's a spot where Jose Quintana is kind of chalky, so you gain some leverage on Quintana. The Cubs are a pretty solid lineup in general, so I'll go with the Cubs. How about you? Who are you taking?
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to answer your question with another question.
All right.
I want you to just guess, just without looking. Do not look. What is Jason Alexander's strikeout rate in the big league so far through 3 starts?
Ooh, so I did look at it earlier.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't remember, but I want to say it was something around, it's in the teens somewhere, I want to say. So I'll go with 14%.
8.
8. Oh man, I can't believe I didn't.
8% strikeout rate, giving up 3 barrels through 83 batted balls, 3.6% barrel rate looks good. Like, by all intents and purposes, it looks as though he's getting by. 2.42 ERA. Yay, congratulations, smashing. Here are his matchups through 4 starts in the big leagues: Cincinnati, Washington, Philadelphia, and the Cubs, 3 of which being at home. Again, this is just whatever. It's a 29-year-old who just got called up to the big leagues for the first time this season. We're talking a 29-year-old who has an expected batting average in the 1st percentile over on Savant, a 12th percentile xWOBA, a 1st percentile K percentage, a 1st percentile whiff percentage. There is no way that this can possibly continue. And I look at this St. Louis lineup, and I've said it for a while now, I do expect some of these lefties, whether it's Donovan or Gorman, to really make a difference because they were very righty heavy. We were basically just stacking up St. Louis against lefties. We were kind of avoiding them against righties. I don't think that's the case anymore, especially considering Goldie is a god. Nolan Arenado, he's starting to just show better form. Obviously hit a bomb yesterday. I don't think he hit that off of a lefty from what I remember. Either way, I'm just pretty positive that St. Louis is a team that I'm going to be so far above the field on. There's flat leverage going that direction. And so, yeah, maybe it's a bit of a conviction play considering there is more leverage to be had with the likes of San Francisco, but I don't want to go nuts against Kyle Wright. Chicago Cubs, I'm definitely going to be getting to because I don't have as much Jose Quintana. But my favorite stack to get to on the board is St. Louis, especially if this lineup doesn't come out for another 20 minutes. You're going to get such reduced ownership on all of these dudes for no reason other than the lineup came out late.
Yeah, I like the call. Yeah, I mean it's just such an exploitable matchup, and they're such a good team. It's hard not to love St. Louis in this spot. I'm with you there.
Again, it's baseball, and I'm not saying that there's 12 teams, and the chances every single day of being like, oh, Eric loves this team, and then they disappoint, like that's going to happen. But I just think you're so much better off finding positive leverage. And I've been doing this enough to know that when lineups come out late like this, I bring it up all the time when you have double headers and then you get maybe a under-owned spot. If it's not glaringly obvious to the field, like a wind blowing out in Wrigley spot or Coors Field, you see reduced ownerships on these late lineups. So I am giving a boost to everybody from St. Louis, and I'm hoping the lineup comes out somewhat close to what I'm projecting it to so that I can just play all of these dudes one through. I won't be playing whatever catcher they have in there because Nizer Sose is not very good at hitting baseballs.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. Yeah.
Okay.
Always love to take advantage of the spots where ownership is reduced just because of when the lineup comes out, because that's such a bad reason for ownership to be reduced. But it also, people have lives to live, and if the lineup's not out, they're just gonna be like, oh well, I've got all these other lineups to choose from. I'll just choose from one that is out. So it makes sense that it happens, but it also is a great spot to take advantage if you are able.
All right. Well, here we go, my friend. We talked about our favorite stacks on the board. Well, our one out of the 12 teams available, but there are two. I'm gonna call it three very, very chalky offenses: the Dodgers, the Twins, and Cleveland. Well, these are kind of the three spots that we have to talk about in depth. Starting with the Dodgers. You already said it. You're going to be lower. You're not going to have any 5-man stacks. I'm assuming you're building 150 today. Are you going to seriously have 0 Dodgers stacks against Hunter Green in Cincinnati today?
On DraftKings, I am. I'm only playing 70 lineups on DraftKings at the moment. I will be playing 150 on FanDuel, and let me see. It's the same kind of story on FanDuel. So yeah, I think I'm gonna probably go to 0 Dodgers. I actually in my DraftKings, I put in some lineups in DraftKings just to have some, and that's the one call that I made. I didn't go through and like I usually do and pick out like I have been doing and pick out individual stacks and just say, okay, I'm going to have only these stacks. All I did was eliminate the Dodgers. It's the only decision that I made. It's just such an easy elimination spot, just because I get it. I understand why the Dodgers are getting the kind of ownership that they are because they are the Dodgers, but they're in a kind of tough spot against Hunter Green. I mean, he's at least a hit or miss pitcher. So I feel like it's a wide range of outcome spots. So if the field is going to be so high owned on a matchup that I believe to be a wide range of outcomes, because he's a talented young pitcher. It's totally possible that the Dodgers are going to crush him. I mean, he's not like an ace at this point in his career. He has a 5.26 ERA. So that doesn't look great. I see why people want to target that, but he also has a 3.68 expected ERA. So I think that Hunter Green has gotten a little bit unlucky so far in his career. He has a 30.1% strikeout rate, 1.29 whip. In general, his numbers look pretty solid, but people are going to see that. People see that 5.26 ERA and they think, ooh, 5.26 ERA against the Dodgers. I obviously want to target that. Dodgers also do have a 5.5 run implied total, so maybe there is something to it. But yeah, I think I'd rather just take the other side of the matchup in this case when the entire field is just saying, hey, the Dodgers are going to light up Hunter Green. I'd rather take the Hunter Green side of that matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to be playing a little bit more Hunter Green, just in terms of like cumulative ownership. I'm going to have well north of 10% Dodgers. I'm well north of 10% Hunter Green. I'm going to have right around 10% Dodgers 5-mans is kind of what it looks like right now. They've got a 117 WRC plus against right-handed pitching on the season, 10.5% walk rate. That's really what's really lethal about them is they get on base. And then a lot of these guys, Trey Turner specifically, guys can run, they can create havoc. They've got power 1 through 9. Even Austin Barnes can bat a little bit there with a 410 expected slugging. So there's really no let up in this Dodgers lineup. There's ways to construct it where you're not going completely nuts in terms of some of this ownership, but I've got to be lower just because I do like Hunter Green. I'm in love with him. 102 mile an hour flamethrower, 30% K percentage. If you can limit the walks, if you can keep the fly balls down, because he is definitely going to be an extreme fly ball pitcher, and that is a tough thing to have in Cincinnati. You're much more apt to see guys like Luis Castillo succeed in Cincinnati than Hunter Green. But regardless, there's going to be massive Hunter Green outings, and I'm not going to miss them on slates. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. Now let's talk about our Minnesota Twins. Yes, our Minnesota Twins alongside Cleveland. Between these two teams, I think we probably both prefer Minnesota, but we're probably the wrong two people to ask as Twins fans. Still, Smeltzer. I do expect in the same way that we're going to be targeting Alexander. I think we're going to be targeting Smeltzer going forward. Does not miss bats at the big league level. That's a problem. Sure, he's limited some of this hard contact, but I don't believe it. There's a 456 expected slugging still attached to him here. I like Cleveland. I like Minnesota. But who from these teams do you like the most?
Yeah, so these are teams that I kind of struggle with. So these are obviously both teams in good spots, but they're also going a little bit over owned. So these are teams that might not make my 5-man stack pool on a typical night. This is a relatively, I mean, it's such a short slate that I still might play some full stacks of these teams because the leverage isn't so negative like it is on the Dodgers. But both teams look fairly slightly negative in terms of their of success versus their stack ownership, but the matchups are so great against Zach Plesac and Devin Smeltzer. I would rather target these teams than I would Hunter Green in that matchup. So I think the answer is I'm going to be playing both of them, despite the slight negative leverage. I just think that the matchups are too good for me to full fade them when you're facing Zach Plesac and Devin Smeltzer. I'll be playing both. Plesac with a 15.2% strikeout rate, Devin Smeltzer 12.4, as you alluded to. That's just so bad. Plesac has a 6.46 expected ERA. Like these are just spots that I want to be playing bats against these pitchers. It is a bummer that Byron Buxton isn't in the lineup for the Twins today because that just made it so much easier to want to full stack the Twins. But even without Buxton, I just feel like these are pitchers that you need to target. So I think I'm going to be playing both. I'll probably be a little bit under the field on both just because they are getting such massive ownership, but I'm not gonna full fade these teams despite the negative leverage. I just think the spots are too good here. In terms of, I don't really currently, I wouldn't say that I really have a preference between these two teams at the moment. They look pretty similar. The Twins with a 13.1% ownership, 11.1% chance to be in the top stack. Cleveland with 12.6% ownership, 11.0% chance to be in the top stack. It's just it's very similar for me. Do you have a preference between these?
Yeah, I think Minnesota's my preference. I do find myself playing quite a few batters, though, individually from Cleveland. A lot of two-mans, a lot of Jose Ramirez, a lot of Ahmed Rosario at a shortstop position, $4,600 for him. I don't think many people end up landing there as a one-off. We've got him projected for around 11.3% ownership as it stands right now. But you look at the shortstop position, and it is just dominated by Trey Turner at 6,100. I will take the field. I will be playing Nick Gordon a little bit, even though I will say Nick Gordon has some surprising numbers. He has a 521 expected slugging and a 285 expected batting average. That is not what I expected to see out of Nick Gordon this season. That's for sure. Batting ninth for Minnesota, now has shortstop eligibility. That becomes kind of a guy, even in the 9-hole, that I'm getting in stacks for the Twins and somebody that I want to be overweight to. Tommy Edman, I don't think many people are going to be going there whatsoever. 5,300, a lot of utility and just keeping the line moving there for St. Louis if I expect them to score a lot of runs. So I'm going to play the field. I get Kyle Farmer batting clean up there in Cincinnati as an extreme leverage spot. I won't be doing that. I'm going to be getting much more to this mid-tier and avoiding a lot of Trey Turner ownership. I'm right around 11% on Trey Turner right now, and I'm going to be trimming it down. We just got the Milwaukee lineup. I wanted to go through this and make sure that nothing looked absolutely insane there. Let's see. Yelich, Adames, Tellez, Urias, McCutchen, Narvaez, Renfroe, Jace Peterson, Tyrone Taylor. Exactly what I had projected. Thank God. Thank you.
That's helpful.
Nice. That never happens.
Cardinals
right?
lineup just came out.
Stop it.
There it is.
Just tell me Goldie's in it.
Goldie is batting third.
Good.
We got
Thank
Edman,
you, God.
Gorman batting second, Goldschmidt third, Arenado 4th, Donovan 5th, Yepez 6th, Carlson 7th, Nootbaar 8th, and Herrera 9th.
Lowell's Nootball. I never
All
play
right.
that guy.
Yeah.
I will not play that guy. So 8 batters. Well, again, Herrera, he's 2K flat, isn't he?
Is he?
He's got to be. He's so bad. Yeah, he's 2K flat. So
All right.
I'll actually get to a little bit because why the hell not? Cool. Well, there we go. Glad to have that out. One Yepez dispenser. I like him too. 6-hole. Useful.
Never heard that one.
Because I came up with it. It's
just now.
I think so. I've never heard anybody do it. That's an Eric Lindquist original. I've said it before, I think, but yeah, it's the Yepez dispenser. Hit the like button for me if anybody else, or if not for anybody else, whatever. I have problems. Let's keep it going, shall we? Other stacks you want to get to? I think some people are going to Miami against Kyle Freeland. I get it. There's some righties you could probably target and get to there. Not my favorite spot, though, on the board. I'm much more inclined to play Minnesota Cleveland in that hitting environment in Minnesota rather than whatever we're seeing here in Miami. Other chalky offenses.
Eric,
go ahead.
Let me just interrupt real quick. So as somebody in chat pointed out, we have Caratini in playing catcher for the Brewers instead of Omar Narvaez.
Yeah,
which is oh, you did say okay. It's different than what the Osmo Tools had.
Oh, got it.
So
no, I had it.
Okay,
sorry, I had Narvaez in the lineup.
No, Narvaez is not in the lineup. Oh, you did.
Narvaez is in the lineup. He's seeing Caratini. He's seeing Caratini, not Narvaez, meaning that like Narvaez is the guy who's in the lineup.
That's not what Underdog is showing me.
Oh, I see Narvaez in the lineup. I'm looking at.
Is this like
I'm looking at
blue?
I'm looking at Cruncher. Did it upload in Cruncher wrong?
Cruncher has not updated with the lineup. Oh yeah, it has. It did update with Narvaez in there.
Caratini now. Caratini's now 6-hole. They just changed it. These bastards. Okay, Jonathan Davis is batting ninth. This is not what I had at all. Glad that they changed it. Because before it had green check mark or had the
it does. Yeah. All right, that's
confusing. I don't want to get into a green check mark discussion with anybody.
Oh no,
but,
let's do this again.
The green dot that was next to everybody was exactly what I had projected before. That is not the way the lineup came out. You said Davis down there at the 9-hole. Jonathan Davis, wasn't he with Baltimore once upon a time? I feel like he was.
Sounds right. Yeah.
I can't remember. Let's see.
So
Yankees
we're going to
designated him. Yada yada yada. Whatever. Cool. Well, that's
Thank
a
you,
different
Michael
Milwaukee
Roundtree, for
lineup.
pointing that out to us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You know, say, does he have a green check mark? Ryan S. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That was the joke. The ceiling is the roof.
It's a funny joke. Where is that guy? That's somebody's username, right? Green check mark.
Yeah. You know why he came up with that was because it was just a troll of me. Not that anybody's ever trolled me in their entire lives.
Yeah.
Live and let live, if you will. You bastards. Miami. I don't want to play any Miami. Not at the rate everybody else is. I'll play my Soler. I'll play my one-offs and get to some of those guys and live my life that way. But is Miami, Colorado, anybody appealing for you in that game? Because yesterday, a little different with the roof open than we got today.
Colorado might be interesting against. I mean, we both said that we like Braxton Garrett. This might be a both sides for me. I mean, they look pretty good in the top stack. So 6.1% ownership, 6.1% chance of being the top stack, and 12.8% chance of being the top point per dollar stack on the board. So those are pretty interesting numbers to me. It's always tough for me to play Colorado outside of Colorado. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's not always tough. It's tough for me to play Colorado in Miami in particular. It's not a spot that I really want to be playing Colorado. I feel like it is going to limit their upside a little bit, but Braxton Garrett, as we said, is kind of an unknown, and I often like to play both sides of an unknown situation. So I do think it makes sense to play some Colorado, and they're coming in with not a ton of ownership. Let me look through particular specific batters.
I'm getting to a little bit of it, mainly because I definitely want to be playing Garrett, and I just need some insurance. Like I'm basically going down to the insurance shop, and I'm taking out a couple shares because, you know, I'm worried about being hurt. And so it's like injury liability insurance.
I like that. What about CJ Cron? Are you going to be playing any Cron here?
I love Cron.
You can always play CJ Cron.
Right? You can always play Cron against any lefty from now until the end of time. You can play him in Coors Field against everybody. It's just a batter that I wish I hadn't traded him away in my dynasty team, but a 255 ISO seems pretty good to me. I'll take some CJ Cron for sure.
Man, what is this? Elehuris Montero. I honestly I don't know anything about this guy batting 8th for the Rockies here. I like Cron. I like Connor Joe. I don't know if there's any other individual bats that I really love for Colorado. I think it's going to be more full stacking, but I think Cron and Connor Joe are the guys that I would have interest in as one-offs. Other than that, it's probably just stacks for the Rockies.
Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? For sure. Yeah, we can get to a little bit of him as well. Give me the righties. Yeah, I'm mainly getting the righties here against Cooper, even though everybody can have fun in this spot if he's not on, which, again, seems like it could be something that happens more times than not. I digress. We have 15 minutes left here in the show. At this portion of the time, we should talk a little prize picks before we round out the stacks and jump over to some of our one-offs, plus get our lineups in. That would be a good idea. But a really good idea for all of you guys is to use promo code Osmo. Yes, we're Stokastic now, but use promo code Osmo. Get that $100 first match deposit bonus over at Prize Picks, as well as 1 free month of Stokastic Plus just by signing up over there, taking advantage of all the great offers. It's a prop site. I mean, you just basically are picking 2 through 5 players in any kind of a prop format. You're just taking overs and unders. We are just looking for winners. We want winners here, no losers, just winners. You put those together, you can make up to 10x your entry fee back. It's a really fun format. I do a video for them every single day because I really enjoy playing over there. If you follow me at Eric Lindquist over on Twitter, you will know that by now. But I'm looking at some of the total home runs. Nothing really stands out to me in kind of a meaningful way. Probably want to be staying away from everything that has to do. The only one that actually looks good would be Cleveland, but Smeltzer keeping the ball in the ballpark lately. I don't expect that to continue, but nothing looks good in that regards. What does look good in terms of strikeouts, I'm going to be looking at, well, he's up to 4 now. I bet him at 3.5. Zach Plesac, the exact same guy we were talking about, the Twins. We're going to be liking getting to some of those guys, but now 3.5 is a lot different than 4. Obviously, Loco was talking about 3.5 being the number. Is there anything that sticks out to you for prize picks purposes? Any props using Odd Chopper or anything else that you might want to get some shares of?
Kershaw 5.5 strikeouts is kind of interesting to me with the expecting him to get up to 90 pitches against Cincinnati. I think that I have some interest in Kershaw at 5.5 strikeouts, taking the over there. I
don't want to take the under of 2.5 for Jason Alexander. I kind of want to do it.
At that a little bit.
I kind of want to do it, but also when you start taking unders of 2.5 strikeouts, you're a really sick person.
I mean, it's
especially
fun.
A dude who's going to throw like 90 pitches if he's pitching decently well. Like by accident, does Juan Yepez miss a baseball? Like just by accident?
Could happen.
Yeah.
Still, that's kind of fun. And you get to sweat, until it happens, which will be probably the whole game. So it's
kind of like what Alex Baker talks about in NFL, where you like take the under of a 6.5 running yard prop for like a third string running back. And you're like, all right, I'm sweating him getting on the field in garbage time. Like that's a fun sweat.
Yeah, exactly. You get the whole game to sweat it. Not one of those that you just win in the first inning. That's boring.
All right. Well, Plesac. Yeah, we're going to stay away from the Plesac one. I like the over 5.5 there for Kershaw. I think that that's one that makes sense. If you guys are over at Odd Chopper, make sure you're using expected win percentage to help you use your bets and to be able to baseline for what you're going to be doing over at Prize Picks. Going to be a lot better for you in the long run. And Kershaw, projected 6.2 strikeouts over 5.5. Absolutely love that one. So pair that with a couple of other ones you yourself might like over at Prize Picks. Check out all the tools we have here at Osmo. Check out all the tools, here at Stokastic now, over at Odd Chopper. Use it all. But most importantly, use $100. Get $100 free by using promo code Osmo right now over at Prize Picks. Thank you so much to them for their sponsorship of this live before lock show and so many other shows here at Stokastic. All righty. We got any other stacks that you wanted to talk about? Because I think I've kind of ran the gamut. We've got all the lineups. I'm running lineups here as it stands right now, waiting for that to get done. And then I'll be able to do some lovely information. Anything else from a stacks perspective you really want to touch on?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the Minnesota-Cleveland game. The Atlanta-San Francisco game is really interesting because both pitchers are pretty solid pitchers that I don't really love to target, but they both have some of the best leverage on the slate. So I am going to have a lot of interest in both Atlanta and San Francisco in that game. Atlanta coming in at 7% projected ownership with a 9.2% chance of being the top stack, 9% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. I really like that spot there. They're one of the first teams in for me. And then San Francisco also, I mean, that's pretty massive leverage. 4.7% projected ownership for San Francisco with a 7.9% chance of being the top stack and a 9.3% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. So pretty massive leverage on San Francisco as well. The Cubs, as I said earlier, I like the Cubs against Jose Quintana's a little bit chalky. The Cubs are coming in under owned. So they were my pick for first stack in a single entry. You mentioned St. Louis. I also love St. Louis. Not a ton of interest in Miami. Milwaukee actually looks really good in the top stacks with a 4.8% projected ownership against Dakota Hudson, 6.7% chance of being the top stack on the board. So I do like Milwaukee as well. As I mentioned, I do like Colorado. Trying to decide if I want any Pittsburgh against Justin Steele. Do you have any interest there? They're coming in at 5.4% ownership.
I have removed every single Pittsburgh Pirate from my player pool. And yes, including O'Neal Cruz, because I also like to live dangerously. Other than Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes. Those are the only two I haven't.
Okay. So you're not going to be stacking at all. You're just going to have some.
No, I have zero. I have legitimately in 300 something lineups, I have 0 Pittsburgh 5-mans.
All right. Well, the counter to that would be 5.4% projected ownership, 12.7% chance of being the top point per dollar stack on the board, 5.3% chance of being the top stack on the board. So those are your reasons to get to Pittsburgh are just that they are not getting a ton of ownership, and they are facing Justin Steele, which is not a bad matchup for Pittsburgh. But I can see the reason that you're not planning on stacking them is because Pittsburgh is just not a great lineup. Is that kind of just the reasoning there?
Yep. And I look at all the other offenses on the board and I want 0 of them. And I really don't even want to get to a lot of one-offs of them. It just doesn't really set up very nicely for me. If I'm going to be playing more Kershaw, more Kyle Wright, I'm getting to a little bit more Kyle Wright than I expected to. Braxton Garrett, I'm getting around 30% of. That's going to be a guy that I always wanted to get to. I'm getting to 27% Hunter Green now as it stands. Just the way my lineups are coming through in the wash, I'm not getting to a whole lot of Pittsburgh bats. And I do think we're going to be stacking them up a little bit more going forward. Like I do get the impression that this is a baseball team that with O'Neal Cruz, with Vogelbach healthy, with some of these other guys at the top of the order, Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds being professional hitters, we're going to get to them more. But it's now below 80 degrees. I think Justin Steele's a decent enough pitcher where I don't really want to go out of my way to go pick on him. I don't want to roster a ton of him, but I still think he stands out.
Yeah. So Justin Steele is better against lefties than he is against righties. So I'm trying to figure out I guess you said Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds. It makes sense. The bats that you chose. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but I guess the bats that you chose are kind of the ones that I have the most interest in. Diego Castillo at 2,500 batting third is kind of interesting to me. I don't usually want to play Michael Chavis in the first base spot. So, and then O'Neal
because it feels
lefty
awful
on lefty. Yeah, exactly. So I can see why it is a little bit tough to get to full stacks. I still have a little bit of interest just because the top stacks tool leads me there, and there are some interesting bats in the lineup. But maybe there's a spot where you could do if you're hand building, maybe you do like a 4-4 stack that includes the Pirates rather than a 5-3 or a 4-3, just because it's hard to find five bats that I like in the Pirates lineup, but I think you could build a kind of a shorter stack there.
All right. Well, I think I'm kind of done in terms of stacks. I don't really have a whole lot. If you want to recap for the people, we have the St. Louis lineup out. I'm getting just an ungodly amount of them. So best of luck to me in all my endeavors in life, but it's going to be a rough day if I can't get that to come to fruition. But as it stands right now, I'm pretty firmly on the side of the Minnesota Twins, pretty firmly on the side of St. Louis, pretty firmly on the side of the Chicago Cubs too. That was the last one that I was kind of surprised to see myself land on quite a bit. Just keep updating the tools here. I just want to make sure that I get to a little bit more of them. If Quintana's really going to be this popular, which is the field really going to do this with Quintana?
I don't know. I don't totally buy that they're going to. That seems That seems massive ownership for a pitcher of Quintana's caliber.
Yeah, well, or lack of caliber at this stage of his career.
Yeah, so I mean, generally
if he's going to end up 30%, if he ends up like between 27 and 33%, I'm going to be pretty happy about the Cubs exposure I have. A third of the field you could take out with some of these Cubs stacks. But if he ends up like 20% or 15%, I'm going to be very, very upset.
Because you'd rather take Quintana in that?
Because I would rather just stay away from everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if a stack's going to go off, it's going to go off and you're just going to kind of need it. You know what I mean? But like,
right.
I would much rather, just because of it burying a third of the field, really, especially if you're not playing in like, if you're playing in like the mini max, or if you're playing in something like that, I mean, you're going to have to really have the nuts regardless. But like, if you're playing some smaller field stuff, I'm playing some higher dollar buy-in stuff for me. Just trying to like get some leverage. If you're going to get 40% Quintana, that's when you really, really want these Cub stacks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That would be massive leverage if Quintana's coming in that high owned.
All right. Well, we still have 500 of y'all hanging out with us. We appreciate you. We appreciate Tyler Zander behind the virtual paywall there. Well, virtual wall. Why do I always say virtual paywall? That makes no GD sense, Eric. GM, everybody.
That's my OnlyFans, Eric. That's a different type of paywall. Sub to me on OnlyFans, chat.
As if everybody's not already, Tyler.
This is true. I don't like this P. Higgins individual. Why is he in so many lineups, though? See, that's the thing, is that sometimes you end up with these stacks that are shit. That's what I was going to say. They're just complete crap, and I need to get rid of them. Let me fix this, and then I will be all set to go. Look at that. I did a thing. I'm an adult. All right, let's go position by position to round out the show. I always think that that's a fun way for us to bid you all adieu. Best of luck. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. We would appreciate that. You have 9 minutes to get your lineups in, but we're going to recap for you our favorite players by position, starting with catcher. I'm getting to Gary Sanchez. I am getting to Wilson Contreras. I am getting to Will Smith third. Who stands out for you at the catcher position, my friend?
Hang on one second. Just redoing my lineups a little bit.
As you should be.
I mean, Will Smith is going to be 24% projected ownership.
No,
hard
thanks.
to totally love that at catcher. Travis d'Arnaud is our number 2 projected catcher, coming in at just 10% ownership. So I like that a little bit better. Wilson Contreras, as I said, I like the Cubs stacks. So I'm going to be wanting some Contreras naturally. Yan Gomes only coming in at 5.2% projected ownership, 2,700 in the 5 spot. That's pretty interesting to me. I think that'll do it for me.
Anything else for you? No, that's no. I think I'm over it. Yeah, that's fine. It's a fine way to do it. Let me fix something on my end here too, because Yan Gomes. There we go. Holy God! I tell you what, we should get an award sometimes for doing these on Live Before Lock, because this is just
for creating lineups.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's just one of those things. I think I just signed up for too many lineups today. That's probably the right way of saying it. It's feeling a little feisty after the last couple of days. To first base we go. Alex Kirilloff, my highest owned batter on the entire slate. So take that for what you will. I just trust what I've seen from him at AAA. I have 33% of him. He is my highest owned batter. Luis Arraez, showing up with Freddie Freeman around 14%. I find him pretty unavoidable in Great American Small Park. And then Paul Goldschmidt. Those are my 4. Who stands out for you, my friend?
Shoot. I almost am able to run a crunch every time right before you ask me that question, and then I keep failing at it. For me, Goldschmidt. I think that's a good call out there. We obviously like the full stacks. He's also a solid one-off, coming in only 9% ownership in this matchup. I don't know how he is so low owned. Love that.
Oh,
Kirilloff, very interesting. Only 2,500. What was that? What was that reaction?
Oh, because you glitched out into the Matrix.
Oh, correct.
You're fine.
All right.
I've got you back, baby.
Rowdy Tellez, only 6.5% projected ownership. I like that. CJ Chrome, we already talked about a little bit. Some interest there. I think Juan Yepez in the 6 hole, 3,600, kind of interesting. Good enough. I think those are some interesting.
The Yepez dispenser. I'm so here for it. I'm so here for it.
I mean, you came up with it. What do you mean you're here for it?
I know. I'm an OG.
Yeah.
What do you want from me?
Going
to second base, Nolan Gorman, please hit a home run. That would be fun. I have lots of you. Jazz Chisholm, getting to a little bit more of him. I said there's kind of 3 batters I wanted to get to against Kyle Freeland. I want to get to Jazz Chisholm against everybody, Jorge Soler and Avisel Garcia, but we'll get to him a little bit later as well. But Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, those are the guys I want to have do things. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, this is where Luis Arias in the second base spot, I have a lot of interest in. So you already mentioned him as a first baseman. You can play him as second baseman too, and that's kind of fun. Yeah, Nolan Gorman in the 2 spot, 3,600. Love that. Let's see who else. Who else stands out here from a value perspective? Let's see. Our
Ray
top,
Donovan.
Our top value second baseman is Philip Gosselin, who is
sure is.
I mean, I do like the Atlanta
lefty
stack.
Specialist.
Yeah, I like the Atlanta stack. He's only 2,000, so sure, I'll probably play some Philip Gosselin. Yeah, I think that's good enough.
F it, we'll do it live.
That's right.
You can also play him in the outfield. That's where I've got him, but such is life.
Outfield over second base?
Well, it depends because, I mean, it's just how much do you like second base? There's Max Muncy. There's Owen Miller leading off today for Cleveland. There's some spots to go to second base that I feel right. And outfield, I feel like it's just like, I'll throw him down there and cast him away. Why not?
Interesting.
I don't know why. You're like, great idea. Not doing that.
I mean, I just generally think of it the opposite way, whereas outfield is typically kind of stacked and second base is generally a pretty weak position. So usually
maybe that's why you do it. Mix it up a little bit.
But I mean, these days I don't handle it all. So I just get whatever fantasy printer, put them where fantasy printer puts them. So yeah. Yeah.
No, I kind of go through my 3 max to kind of finish everything out. And that's what I'm doing here right now. To third base. Did we do third base yet? We did not. Jose Ramirez really makes sense. You should play him. Gio Urshela, the hero of the people from last night, that's for sure. And Patrick Wisdom. Go yard, young man. Who are you playing at third?
Yep, those are all some good call outs there. Did you say Ke'Bryan Hayes? Because he looks as a one-off. I did not
say Ke'Bryan Hayes.
As a one-off, some interest in Ke'Bryan Hayes at 4,100 leading off. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, I feel like you're naming all the guys that I have. Trying to find guys that you don't name to have interest in. Our top value guy is actually the guy who I don't know anything about. Elihuris Montero is our top value third baseman at 2,000 in the 8-hole for Colorado. So make of that what you will. Yeah, I think
I like
Ryan
the way
McMahon,
that you said that. That sounded lovely to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, just saying. Just a man complimenting another man in the world.
That's I appreciate the compliment.
Let's round it out, my friends. Shortstop. Carlos Correa, do it. Ahmed Rosario, do it. Dansby Swanson actually showing up too. Wouldn't mind that for a little leverage against Alex Wood. How about yourself?
Yep, love all those call outs. Trey Turner, the best projected, but he's also going to be 27.2% owned. So hard to love that. Diego Castillo at just 2,500 in the 3-hole. Kind of have interest there. Yeah, I think we've named all of the Willy Adames in the 2-hole. He's expensive, but only coming in at 7.4% projected ownership. So interest there as well. I think that rounds it out. All right. And to finish up the show, my friend, outfield, hit it up, hit it right, hit it tight. We're looking at Alex Kirilloff again. First base outfield, that was always going to happen for me. Getting to tons of Max Kepler, getting to tons of Franmil Reyes, getting tons of Trevor Larnach. This is kind of where my Minnesota Twins show up, it looks like. But what stands out for you to finish out the show? No! Oh, at the end of the show. Oh, he's quiet.
Wow, that's
too.
tough.
He's so pensive. So he's smiling over here, and now it's
he's meditating.
That's fantastic.
He's meditating.
Everybody
on
hit
that
the
answer.
like button. Hang on. How do I do this?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
That's the right way?
Yeah. That's just Neil. Yeah.
Brian in the ear.
He's gone. He's gone.
Oh, he has left us. He is no longer amongst us. You know what, though? It's okay. We're at the end of the show. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you. Oh, now we're in the Matrix again. We're in the Matrix. We're doing everything fine. Neil loves you. Neil misses you guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show. Hit the like button for my guys. We get out of here. Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass, not paywall, doing so well, waving to the people. We are out of here. Best of luck today. I have nothing else to say. Look at that. There's Tyler. He's lovely. He's the new co-host. We're leaving. Goodbye.